radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
I need your help to get to the year 1985.
You're listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Good evening. All right, Fade to Black. Yeah, man. Bespoke radio for the masses. Yeah. How you doing? Today's Wednesday, May 19th, 2021. 139 days into the new year. Only 226 days left. Let's do this, man. We are live from a bunker that is somewhere in the middle of nowhere. A total undisclosed location. But it is beautiful. I would like to welcome everybody listening all around the world, all across the United States. Hither and thither, to and fro, back and forth, up and down, east and west, north and south, far and near. This is Fade to Black for KJCR, the Game Changer Network, and KGRA, the planets. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. What is cracking, everybody? How you doing? How you doing? Yeah. Tonight, right here, David Marler. David Marler's with us now. We're going to have an open-ended conversation tonight. We're going to be talking about what went down this past Sunday with 60 Minutes and their UAP special. That's right. Special segment. We're going to be talking about that and a whole lot more. David is not only a great author, but he's one of the top researchers in all of ufology. And I posted up in Twitter. Follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Check out the picture that this is a screen grab. David and I were doing sound check, and I'm looking and just go over to Twitter and look. That is his research library and archives. Look at that picture, man. Look at that. Man. What I would do to just hang out there. Now you can see it's a screen grab. Up in the right-hand corner, that's me, right, sitting in the bunker, and there's David. I'm like, man, David, is it okay? Can I show everybody this? He said, sure. So there you go. That's a quick screen grab. That's David Marler. That's David Marler, and we'll be talking about his research library tonight and what is in there and where he has gotten some of his materials from and his archives. But one of the things that David does do is he invites other researchers to come in and work. He probably puts them to work. Start digitizing. But man, look at that picture. Anyway, so David's with us tonight. Very excited. He's one of the best, and he'll be with us at the bottom of the hour. All right. Everybody wants their own crystal skull. I've got a bunch of them. I only have one source. That's Carolyn Ford. Visit EinsteinTheCrystalSkull.com. The links are over at JimmyChurchRadio.com. Go pick out your next crystal skull. Promo code is Jimmy, and you're going to get 10% off of your next crystal skull. So go and visit Carolyn Ford today. I am going to be, now, I was talking about this today with a few different people. about Laughlin and what is going down. It is June 6th through the 12th, Laughlin, Nevada, UFO MegaCon. And it's going to be great. I am hosting 2 panels. I will be doing sky watching. I'll be hosting. I'm going to goof around and things, but we also have the Faded Black booth there, and we're going to have a lot of really cool merch. And I'm going to get to listen to all of these great researchers do their presentations. The announcement came out today. I got the email. The Aquarius Hotel and Casino, no mask requirements. That's it. And that includes the staff at the Aquarius Hotel and Casino. No mask. No mask anywhere. That's it. That's it. Have you had the vaccine? Do you have proof? None of that. None of that is going down. So if the mask issue was something that you were reticent about and you were holding back, well, that's it. No mask requirements. How cool is that? UFO MegaCon, the banners and links are over at jimmychurchradio.com. Go click, get your passes, get your information, get your tickets, get everything together. Come over to Laughlin, Nevada, and hang out with the rest of us. It is going to be great. 7 days, 7-day Fade or Not party. That's what I'm talking about. Follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Okay, hashtag F2B is the sandbox. Hashtag F2BQ is Fade to Black questions. And, of course, my email is jimmy@jimmychurchradio.com. Let's get to the breaking news. The world's largest iceberg has calved from Antarctica over the past few days. A giant floating piece of ice close to 80 times the size of Manhattan. The iceberg broke off the western side of the Ron ice shelf in Antarctica's Weddell Sea. The iceberg is shaped like a giant ironing board. That's exactly what it looks like, measuring around 105 miles in length and 15.5 miles in width. That makes it slightly larger than the island of Mallorca. That is ginormous. Well, a lot of rumors going around about this next news story, but the truth came out today. The Colonial Pipeline CEO, Joseph Blount, said he authorized a ransom payment of $4.4 million in response to a cyber attack on the company's network earlier this month. This is the first public announcement by the company that a ransom had been paid, and comes after repeated refusals from the company to discuss the payment, which Blount called a highly controversial decision. But they paid. They paid terrorists, cyber terrorists. The first image is captured by China's Mars probe Tianwen during and after the country's first landing on the Red Planet were released by the China National Space Administration earlier today. I posted both images up throughout social media. You need to go and check it out. It's pretty cool. The probe sent back a video taken by a camera on the orbiter showing how the lander and the rover separated from the orbiter during landing. It also sent back 2 photos by the rover Zhurong after landing. That is Zhurong, Zhurong. The CNSA said Zhurong is now preparing to leave the lander and come down to the surface of Mars. Absolutely exciting. Now, let's get this show cracking. Happy birthday to today. Cassandra, that's funny. I'm gonna like that. That's a funny tweet right there. That's funny. That's funny. Pink Panther on an ironing board. Pretty funny. Let's get the show cracking. Happy birthday to Pete Townsend today, 76. Grace Jones today is 73. Man, we're getting old. Tom Scott is 73. That's right. Of the Blues Brothers and the LA Express. AC/DC's Phil Rudd today is 67. And ZZ Top's Dusty Hill, bass player, sausage fingers. Dusty Hill today, 72 years old. Incredible. Our dead guy's birthday today is Steve Curry. 1947 to 1981, died at the age of 33. Steve was the bass player and long-term member of T-Rex. He joined T-Rex as bass guitarist in November 1970 and continued to play with them until late 1976. He appeared on all of Mark Bolan's hit singles and the albums Electric Warrior all the way up to Dandy in the Underworld. His innovative and sophisticated bass playing can be seen in the movie Born to Boogie. I actually watched Born to Boogie today. All of it. Just 4 years after leaving T-Rex, Steve died in a car crash on April 28, 1981, while returning to his home in Portugal. He was just 33 years old. Happy birthday, Steve Curry. On this day in history, OTD, 1967. The Soviet Union ratifies an agreement banning nuclear weapons from outer space. The United States, Great Britain, and several dozen other nations had already signed and or ratified the treaty. That's right. It was signed in 1967. Fader fact. This one's about chocolate. Chocolat. Chocolate was classified as candy under the Revenue Acts of 1918 and 1921. And so it was taxed as such. Hershey's sued to recover about $8 million in taxes by arguing that chocolate was actually food. Right? And they said, hey, we've been wrongly taxed. Well, Hershey's lost when the Supreme Court ruled that chocolate was indeed candy. And that is your Fader fact. Tonight, very special guest, David Marler is here. Man, I'm looking forward to this conversation. We're going to break down that 60-minute special event about UAPs that aired this past Sunday. We're going to talk about all the headlines around the world, how he gets his research done, the climate today within ufology. It's going to be an open-ended, great conversation in just a few minutes with David Marler. Stay right there. I need to hit this River Moon coffee. Is that Grace Jones? Corey, is that Grace Jones? Oh, man. Rivermoon. Rivermoonwellness.com. And promo code's F2B Blend. 15% off of your order today. Visit the website. Or you can go to Amazon. We've got all of those too. We've got the Amazon stores right there. Get the Game Changer. Game Changer Blend. Fade to Black Blend. I like my coffee dark. Man, this is a good batch right here. All right. So, I watched Barack Obama's comments on UFOs and UAPs from this past Monday when he was on The Late Show with James Corden. That aired on CBS, and it was pretty interesting. Certainly was. CBS, 60 Minutes, UFOs, UAPs, Barack Obama, CBS. Get it? See the connection? Well, here is one of the gems delivered by Barack. Quote, what is true, and I'm actually being serious here, is that there is footage and records of objects in the skies that we don't know exactly what they are. End quote. What do you do with that? Now, we all know, and this isn't a red, blue, Democrat, Republican comment. No. It's just a fact. We all know that Obama is a great orator. The guy can speak. He chooses the right words. He's got great facial expressions. He's got convincing hand movements. Barack can deliver when he needs to. So, with that, here is another nugget from Monday night. Quote, "We can't explain how they move, their trajectory. They did not have an easily explainable pattern. And so I think that people still take seriously trying to investigate and figure out what that is. But I have nothing to report to you today." End quote. Barack even cracks a joke. Now, although funny, it wasn't that funny. And the joke was this, quote, "When it comes to aliens, there are some things that I just can't tell you on the air." Right? And then he continued with this, quote, "The truth is that when I came into office, I was like, is there a lab somewhere where they're keeping the alien specimens and the spaceships? And so they did a little bit of research. And the answer is no." End quote. All right. Now here's the truth, as I see it. After watching this over and over again, Barack is lying. He's not being straight with us at all. Now, of course, I can't state this as fact. I have no idea of knowing the real truth behind his statements. But this time around, his body language, his face, his eyes, his tone. Well, I'm no expert in these areas, okay? I'm not. I'm not somebody that's going to be an expert professional witness in a trial in court. I'm not an expert. But I feel that he's just flat out lying. Right? I'm not buying what he's selling right now. He's done all of this before. We've seen these comments about aliens and ETs and Area 51 and all of that. And he cracked jokes back then and made it funny, but I believed what he was saying. On Monday night, he's trying to mix some fact, some speculation, and humor to kind of deflect away from real answers. And that's deception. He's done all of this before in the ET issue, but this time the delivery just didn't work. Not for me. Didn't work. These clips have made it all around mass media. People are commenting on it. Some are happy. Hopefully some are looking at this with some discernment, some squinty eyes. But you have to ask yourself, if Barack Obama knows anything about ET, is he going to reveal it on The Late Show with James Corden? Right? That's the question. The answer is simple. Of course not. Let's be real here. But Barack, who is usually in complete control, didn't handle things right. And his answers to these questions could have been much better without revealing what he really knows. And I'm being very serious right now. Listen to me. He could have said something like, quote, "You know, I just can't say anything on any of this. I'm no longer the president and I have a security oath. So whatever I know stays with me. And how the new administration deals with this is up to them. I mean, it would be like, bam, that's it, right? Just drop it right there. That's truthful. That I would believe. Right? I'd like, okay, all right, I'm with you, Barack. Yeah. You know something, but you can't talk about it. That's okay. That would be the truth. And I think all of us would understand and respect that type of answer and position. Right? Make a joke out of that. Make that funny. That's okay. Right? By giving the direct answers like he did, and think about this, right? Like he did with, I'm going to quote again here. The truth is that when I came into office, I was like, is there a lab somewhere where they're keeping the alien specimens and the spaceships? And they did a little bit of research, and the answer was no. End quote. Now, is this an attempt at comedy? I mean, it's obviously a joke. Is it an attempt at comedy? Or is Barack stating this as fact and turning that into a joke? Because he's saying it like it happened. I went into the Oval Office. I said, okay, where's the aliens? What you got? It was the first thing I did. It's what I did. He's stating this as fact like it actually happened. Right? He's stating that he did ask these questions and that somebody came back to him with an answer. Right? And my response is so simple. It's just like, this is simply a lie. That statement is a lie. I don't feel that Obama is telling the truth. And it doesn't have to be this way, everybody. It doesn't. He could have handled it better. He could have been more prepared. Now, I'm not so sure that anybody in the know, certainly somebody like the president, but anybody in the know, the head of the CIA, NSA, NRO, right, DIA, Pentagon, Joint Chiefs, anybody that would be in the know of very specific information that was revealed to them about the government's knowledge of ET and being visited by extraterrestrial civilizations. Somebody that reads the real stuff, sees the real stuff, finds out, sees a body, whatever it is. Anybody that is in that position, we don't know them. We don't know their names. That's a fact. But I'll take it a step further. Somebody that reads this or sees this and gets that question answered, one of the biggest questions, if not the biggest questions in all of Earth's history. How would they feel about repeating it? I think it would shake them to their core. Some may be relieved with knowing that, but they are not going to repeat it. That includes Barack Obama. So by saying this, I know stuff, but I can't share it with you on the air. I can share it with you off of the air. That's a non-answer, and that is deceptive. Saying that he went and sought answers and asked about them, and they did a little bit of research, and the answer is no, we have no alien secrets, that's a lie. That is not truthful. Now, it's being relayed as a joke, but that is now deception. He's being deceptive. I watched it over and over again. In his previous comments over the years, I enjoyed them. I thought that they were funny. Talked about his family and his kids asking about it, and I get that's funny. It's humorous. It was cool. And I believed him. I believed that he was telling the truth. This time around, it is not that. And it comes on the heels of, this was on Monday. You have to remember what happened on Sunday with 60 Minutes. James Corden is also on CBS. This is all done on purpose. It's done for a reason. I don't know what it is. David Marler, who's going to be with us here in just a couple of minutes. We were talking about this earlier. And we have to ask ourselves, this is David and I talking one-on-one. Why? What is actually going on? Why? Why now? Why all of this hitting us at the same time? You know, and we have believers and we have skeptics and we have debunkers and television and the media and the breakdown and more evidence and more leaked videos and the UAP task force. And I talk about it every night on the show, but it is coming at us full force. Why? Why is Barack Obama on James Corden discussing this with deception? It's very interesting. I want to break it all down tonight with David Marler. I want to remind everybody before I go to the break, tomorrow night there is no show. We have canceled the show for tomorrow night. I will be traveling to Indianapolis. I'm going to go see my father, who is not doing well. I'm going to go hang out with my family. And I'll be back on Monday. We're going to have a show on Monday night, and there's that. But there is no show tomorrow. Don't shoot me an email going, Jimmy, where's the show tonight? You know, there was nothing in the podcast. There's nothing in the archives. There is no show tomorrow night. I don't know if I'm going to be on social media that much, but I want to share, you know, this is a very strange trip that I have to go on. I get that. But on Saturday night, and I know some of them are listening right now, I haven't been back to Indianapolis in over 20 years. And so a bunch of my friends that I grew up with from high school, they all know what's going on. They all know my family. They all know my brothers and my mom and dad. They planned a little dinner and get-together with me on Saturday night. So I'm going to be able to do that and spend some time with some friends that I haven't seen in a couple of decades. And that's going to be great. So hopefully we'll snag some pictures, and I'll post those up too as well. And to everybody, I look forward to seeing all of you on Saturday night. With that, I'm going to get out of here. I'll be right back with tonight's guest, David Marler. This is Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Network and KGRA, The Planet. You can follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. That's simple enough. Hashtag F2B. Right in front of me is the Sandbox. I'll be right back after this short break with David Marler. Stay right there.
This is Nicole Church, daughter of you-know-who, and you're listening to Fade to Black on JimmyChurchRadio.com and the Game Changer Network.
You're listening to Jimmy Church, Fade to Black.
Fade to Black will now pause for alien identification.
The station that talks the net. KGRA Radio. This is Jimmy Church, and I'll be at the UFO MegaCon this June 6th through the 12th, 2021 in Laughlin, Nevada. The Laughlin UFO MegaCon is unique. It's 7 days of education and disclosure. It's unlike all other UFO conferences. The Laughlin UFO Mega Conference specializes in bringing you new people, offering new information and disclosure. All of this is offered at prices so low you can actually afford to be there. For instance, 7-night hotel packages, 1 or 2 people, start at just $320 inclusive. Education and disclosure is why the Laughlin UFO Mega Conference exists. Join us for all 7 days, or a half a week, or just a day or 2, but join us. Go to LaughlinUFOMegaConference.com. Register now. The only thing keeping you from being with all of us is you. Just go to LaughlinUFOMegaConference.com. Introducing the Game Changer blend from River Moon Coffee that delivers a customized blend made specifically for the Fadernauts. If the game is rigged, change the game. It's a bolder cup with some bite. Game Changer is the coffee of choice for those that prefer an organic dark roast that is slightly lighter and milder, but it's still dark. With wild notes of pecans and chocolate with a rich, balanced, full-bodied cup that is roasted to perfection for a great coffee to start your day, as an after-dinner coffee or anywhere in between. Artisan, small batch roasted to perfection. USDA certified organic, all River Moon coffee is freshly roasted and packaged in the USA. Just go to rivermooncoffee.com or click on the banners over on our site and use the promo code F2BBLEND for 15% off of your order today. rivermooncoffee.com.
This is the only way forward.
This is Fade to Black. Make contact. KGRAradio.com.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and you can get our podcast for just $2 per month. All you have to do is click on the podcast banner over at jimmychurchradio.com.
Hi, folks. It's troubling times, and fear is pushing emotions, which in turn pushes health the wrong direction. Do you ever get an ache because life is uneasy? Try Life Change Tea at getthetea.com. Life Change Tea works on your digestive tract, helping to move food through quicker and comfortably so your health is spot on. Life Change Tea may not help with world issues, but it will help with your digestive issues. A glass a day helps keep the intruders away. So, change your life today. Log on to getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. If your health game is off, get on by ordering Life Change Tea. getthetea.com. And while you're on our site, look around at the great non-GMO organic supplements. And if you're a sales shopper, go to our specials page and see what's for you. I've been drinking the tea for 12 years, and I'm sure glad for its health benefits. Again, that's getthetea.com. Getthetea.com. The tea that makes you go.
Fadernauts. When you think about the future of our country and where we're headed, do you wonder about the food supply? I do. Disruptions in the food supply chain could be disastrous, and they usually occur with little warning. That's why the smartest thing you can do today is to stockpile emergency food, water, and other essentials. I personally recommend My Patriot Supply. They're the nation's largest emergency preparedness company, serving millions of customers for more than a decade. In fact, they're the only source my family trusts for our preparedness plan. You should too. Right now, save 20% off a full 4-week supply of delicious meals that provide 2,000 calories a day. Saving 20% helps too, doesn't it? Especially now. So go to preparewithjimmy.com and get ready. That's preparewithjimmy.com. There's no time to lose. Do it now.
9 out of 10 geneticists agree.
Fade to Black is not your father's radio show on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the planet.
Hi, this is Rob Reiner from Anvil, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
What's up? I'm Chris. What up? This is Kyle Massey, and you're listening to Jimmy Church Radio.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Somebody said over in YouTube, they said, Jimmy, your guitars are all dusty and ignored. Nah. So now I'm all self-conscious. They look pretty good. Not as good as where David Marler is sitting right now. Let me tell you something. You saw the picture I just posted. Tonight, David is here. We're going to be discussing the recent 60 Minutes UFO UAP segment that aired this past Sunday and what the future is right now for the UFO community. David has had a lifelong interest in the subject of UFOs. He joined the MUFON network in 1990 as a Field Investigator Trainee. Since then, he has served as Field Investigator, State Section Director, as well as Illinois State Director. David is currently an independent UFO researcher. Now, he has, you've seen the photo evidence, he has an extensive personal library of UFO books, journals, magazines, newspapers, case files. He's even got an alien body on ice. That's what I've heard. Now, he invites other researchers to come into his library and go through the archives and get work done. And I want to say this. He received his Bachelor of Science degree in psychology from Southern Illinois University at Edwardsville, otherwise known as SIUE. He received his certification in hypnotherapy from Mottin and Johnson Institute of Hypnosis in St. Louis, Missouri. And his website, of course, is davidmarlerufo.com. I'd like to welcome back to Fade to Black, David Marler. David, what's up, my man?
Jimmy, it's great to be with you. It seems like it's been forever since we last talked.
You know, that's because it has, and I swear on all that is holy and everything that I love, we cannot let this happen again. I didn't realize, well, first off, we all know that time flies. Right, oh, but there's no excuse. You now there's no excuse for me, but I can put it right back on you, David. You never, I can put it right back on you. So
communication's a two-way street.
Yes, it is, especially these days, my friend. Especially these days, I've kept my eye on you, and one of the things that I've noticed over the last couple of years are the comments about your archives, your library, and what you have assembled there. It's become pretty famous, and I'm sure that you realize this, but I'm looking, how many square, what is that, a barn?
No, actually, first let me just say, for the sake of the official record, I'm married to one of the most beautiful wives that anyone could ever be married to, who actually tolerates not only me personally, but my passion. And we actually, when her and her two daughters moved in with me, we just got married a couple years ago.
Congrats.
Thank you. We decided that we needed to do something with regards to the house. There was only so much room for wife, kids, and UFO material. So either the UFO material went, the wife and kids went, or option, number 3, we build a new addition to the house. So we actually put about a 20 by 24 foot, room onto the house, designed specifically to have, as you mentioned in your lead into the segment, have researchers come in. So we have the ability to do scanning, photocopying here, and currently involved in a lot of digitization work with old audio recordings. Jan Aldridge, Barry Greenwood are going to be coming out very soon. They're actually going to be live-in researchers who are going to be scanning the latest acquisition, which I have here, which we'll talk about, I'm sure, the Kufos Nightcap historic UFO case files.
Yes.
But yeah, we basically set this room up. It's really designed for researchers to come in. In fact, tomorrow I have a good friend, Barry Roth from Colorado, coming in to do extensive research. He's been chomping at the bit, Jimmy, since COVID, waiting for me to lift the COVID ban so he could come in and do some research. And then I have another researcher, Charles Lear from New Mexico, who's coming this Saturday to do some research.
I mean, how exciting is that? But tell me the truth, David. Do you lay down, are there ground rules? You can come in and research all you want, but over here are 10,000 pages that have to get scanned. So come in and do what you want, but when you're done, those are going to be scanned.
Jimmy, it's so funny you bring that up because people don't fully appreciate the amount of work that archiving requires, just the sorting and the filing. My wife and I just recently went through 15, and let me emphasize that again, 15 4- and 5-drawer file cabinets full of historic NICAP Kufos case files, reorganizing them so that they're easier to access. And in the process of culling through all of those files, we wound up with 5 file cabinet drawers of miscellaneous documents that were misfiled or weren't filed that need to be gone through and sorted, filed, and ultimately, to your point, digitized, because the goal is to make this physical library a virtual library to where people will be able to access this data online.
It's insane. How long does it take you, like these file cabinets? Now, this isn't like a couple hours in the afternoon.
No. No. And contrary to public opinion, I do not do this for a living. I can't tell you how many people contact me and say, I think this is great. You do UFOs full time. It's like, no, time out. I actually have a real job, a 9-to-5 job. I do this in evenings and on weekends at the sacrifice of family time. So, not just myself. Certainly there's lots of other civilian UFO researchers out there that sacrifice a lot of personal and family time to work on this, to your point. And, it's not just that, but I get numerous requests, and I might add worldwide, from people that email me out of the blue stating, I understand you have this material. By any chance, do you have a case file from Connecticut, April 25th, 1952?
Mm-hmm.
So constant requests for information like that. And like James Fox with The Phenomenon, he spent about 3 or 4 days here scanning, photographing, and basically downloading tons of archival photos, newspapers, government documents, and audio recordings. And so, I try to make it available. And it's funny, really, the impetus for creating this, and I never thought it would get to this degree. I mean, going back to 1990, when I first got involved in UFOs actively, I always had an interest as a kid, but 1990 I became actively involved. I naively went to local libraries thinking, oh, I can just check out books on the UFO subject. After going to 2 or 3 local libraries, as I'm sure much of your audience has probably dealt with this, I was shocked and surprised that there was either a complete absence of books on the subject or only 2 or 3 that were probably 60 years old. And so I decided very early on, if I'm going to have a quote-unquote library, I'm going to have to create one. And originally it was selfish in intent. I just wanted to create a library for myself to do my own education and research. But as you mentioned at the lead-in, I started getting other people that started hearing about it, and it was kind of a snowball effect. Aging researchers said, you know what, I'm not doing too well health-wise, but I want to be able to make sure my material survives. Would you mind taking it on? And numerous organizations, individuals started doing that. 31 years later, here we are, and now I'm official custodian for CUFOS, for the CUFOS Nightcap case files.
Yeah, we're going to circle right back to that in just a second, but tell me the truth. Right behind, is that an alien body on the table wrapped in, is that?
No, that's actually a high-speed commercial scanner specifically requested by Barry Greenwood, and I was happy to have a financial benefactor contribute about $1,600 to purchase that. So, no, that's actually a commercial-grade scanner.
Oh, man. You should have just gone with the alien body. But
it's a better story.
Yeah, it's a better story. It is impressive, and just thank you for your dedication and looking at this. It's just got to be it's Disneyland. For somebody like me and members of this audience, when they see something like this, it's just absolutely incredible.
Well, it's funny. I've really garnered a lot of attention lately, and in part due to the fact of what we're going to talk about as far as the coverage, the media coverage of the UFO UAP subject. I had a retired Air Force colonel and lieutenant colonel here about 4 weeks ago, and we were having a conversation as we're walking around the room. They were looking. I have off to the side here, I have a Project Blue Book cabinet with original Project Blue Book memorabilia, which I've collected from various members that were part of the project in the later years. But the retired colonel looked at me at one point during the conversation. He goes, did you ever stop to think, amongst all these 30-plus file cabinets, that you might have to the answer to the UFO mystery? And I looked at him and I said, yeah. I said, it's just finding the time to find it.
Yeah, it's here somewhere. For sure. Now, CUFOS, how did that happen?
Well, it's really the legacy of Dr. J. Allen Hynek. I'm sure your audience is familiar with his work, with Project Blue Book, scientific consultant for many years. But obviously, in his later years with Project Blue Book, he really started to shift as far as his skepticism with regard to the subject. and really towards the end realized that there appeared to be, and using my words carefully, appeared to be an objective reality to this. In other words, you couldn't simply, subscribe all of these sightings to, hallucination, misidentification, etc. There seemed to be a small percentage, a core body of reports that constituted, quote unquote, evidence of something real. And when Dr. Hynek left the project, when it shut down, December 1969, in 1973, he founded the Center for UFO Studies to continue the work on his own as an independent scientist. And over the years, they acquired a lot of material on their own. And then in 1980, when NICAP essentially folded, the National Investigation Committee on Aerial Phenomenon, CUFOS incorporated those historic case files into their collection. And then now, as of November of last year, CUFOS, Dr. Mark Rodiger and the staff and the board agreed that I would be the official custodian of their files with the intent of, over the next 2 to 3 years, getting those digitized.
Now, I've seen the photographs. I've talked to Michael Schratt, and I've talked to Paula Harris and others that spent a lot of time there. Don Schmidt, right? And they just, all they could relay is, Jimmy, you have no idea about how much material is here. Right. Now, what they are referring to, all of this huge body of stuff, you have it all?
I don't have some of Hynek's personal files. Dr. Mark Rodiger still has some of those, as well as select files, but the vast majority of the CUFOS material is here, 95% of it, I would say. How
did that arrive? David, let me interrupt. How did that arrive? What kind of truck? Was it? And are you wheeling in literally, file cabinets full of?
Well, I suffered from 2 herniated discs last year, so let me just, for the record, state I didn't move those file cabinets, but we did have a moving company that transported those from Chicago, where they had resided since 1973, to my home here in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and we received 15 4- and 5-drawer file cabinets filled with hundreds, if not thousands, of UFO case files. What's important to note is we not only have individual case files from CUFOS and NICAP, we also have the original Project Blue Book material from Dr. J. Allen Hynek. In other words, the actual project record cards, government documentation, and most importantly, Jimmy, and I'd love to touch on this point, you have the case file, which you can readily pull up through the National Archives, etc. The unique thing about the collection we have here, we have Hynek's personal comments with regard to each case. In other words,
how cool is that? I mean,
yes.
I was gifted a couple of CUFOS files.
Yes.
Copies. I don't have the originals. Saw the originals. Okay. Sure. But I'm looking, and there's Hynek's signature, right? His notes in the margins and his comments, and and I'm holding, and that was so special to me. But you've got the stuff,
the original.
Yes.
And what's interesting about that, to your point, Jimmy, is you can look at the case file, but when you can see Hynek's comments, typically in red felt marker, he always did it usually in red felt marker,
right?
In his characteristic handwriting, you will see where he crosses out ball lightning as an explanation. And then he'll write something often, like, as you mentioned, the marginalia, and write Air Force should have investigated further. And then he would write unidentified in uppercase letters and underline it 5 or 6 times. It really gives insight into the man and into his opinion with regard to the UFO cases, but more specifically, the Air Force investigation or lack thereof.
Now, how are you? Okay? You know what? This is a Jimmy question. Do you just go down by yourself and just open up a drawer and grab a handful of stuff and start reading?
I do. And actually, I shouldn't do that, because you literally get lost. You'll fall down a rabbit hole where one document leads to another document. You start reading, and then about an hour and a half later, you realize, you know what? I was supposed to be scanning documents, and I'm sitting here reading it. In fact, Barry Greenwood, I just had a conversation with him, and I want to mention that Barry, over the last several years, has scanned about 20% of the case files that are here. So when he and Jan Aldridge come out later this year, they're going to be trying to complete the work that Barry and Jan have already started. But it's very easy to get distracted and start reading these reports. And I will tell you, Jimmy, and I'll tell your audience, Dr. Mark Rodiger told me, now, don't be surprised when you go through those Blue Book files. There are some original documents that are not in the National Archives. In other words, you have the original document signed in blue ink, not a photocopy, not a photostat. It is the original document. And so we do have some of that material. And through the courtesy of Rob Mercer, an independent researcher in Ohio, I acquired another collection of Blue Book material because I already had my collection before I received this in November. And I already had a collection from Lieutenant Carmen Morano, who is one of the last staff members of Blue Book. Mm-hmm. So a lot of the material, including, I might add, slides that were internal briefings for Project Blue Book personnel, which are not part of the official National Archives collection.
Now, I heard about the Rob Mercer cache.
Yeah.
Yes. Where did that come from?
It's an amazing story. And I can't tell you, there are so many stories, Jimmy, behind how we get some of this material after quite literally decades. Rob Mercer, several years ago, had just recently got into the UFO field. And he had become a member of MUFON, and like myself, back in 1990, started reaching out and just trying to learn about UFOs. He stumbled across a Craigslist posting stating original Project Blue Book material. His first thought, like yours and mine, would be, this is too good to be true. But he scheduled a meeting with the gentleman that claimed that he had this. Now, mind you, this is in the greater Dayton, Ohio area.
That's right.
So it does put it in the right area, right?
It does.
The Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. So Rob met with the man and very quickly realized this is original documentation. It has the official stamps, FTD, Foreign Technology Division, Air Technical Intelligence Center, and long story short, he bought the entire collection. He started going through it, and very quickly he realized one name was extremely prominent in a lot of the documentation and interoffice memoranda. It was Lieutenant Carmen Morano. So, to Rod's credit, he researched this guy and found a Carmen Morano that was still living, and found the guy's phone number, called him up, and basically said, look, I've come across all this material. Were you with Project Blue Book in the 1960s? And he conceded yes. And in fact, there's historic photos of Lieutenant Carmen Morano you can pull up on the internet. And through a series of phone calls, he started to really develop a friendship with Carmen Morano. And at one point, Carmen Morano said, you know what, Rod, you seem like you're really enjoying these documents. I think I've got 2 or 3 more boxes here where I'm living. I'll send those out to you. So he got additional.
Yes. When we were talking about this on the show, I kept going back to the one unbelievable part about this, which is Craigslist.
Yes.
Right? I mean, Craigslist. I mean, of all, and it all fell into place.
Jimmy, I've told Jan Aldridge, Barry Greenwood this. We could do a show, and it's fascinating, the stories that we could tell you of how we've secured certain information. There was a collection that was tied to Dr. Leon Davidson. Dr. Leon Davidson was an early UFO researcher. He was a scientist that was attached to the Manhattan Project. He was a Columbia University trained chemist. Ostensibly, his collection resides at Columbia University, his alma mater. But the one thing that they don't have in their online catalog and inventory is his personal correspondence. Through a friend of a friend, I was put in touch with literally a self-proclaimed dumpster diver in New York State about 4 years ago. He was fishing through this trash dumpster on a daily basis, and family or friends of the late Dr. Leon Davidson were throwing his material away. I have about one file cabinet drawer full of correspondence from the early 50s to the late 60s, correspondence with Kenneth Arnold, correspondence with then Senator Lyndon B. Johnson, J. Edgar Hoover, as well as Donald Kehoe and a number of luminaries from the early years of UFO research. This literally, I'm not saying this figuratively, literally was saved from the trash heap.
That is incredible. Kehoe, right? Wow.
Donald Kehoe.
Oh, that's incredible. I need to get to a break here, but I'm going to ask a silly question. Has Linda Moulton Howe been by?
She has, actually, not at this facility, but about 4 or 5 years ago now, Jimmy. She had come to the house where I was previously in Albuquerque and seen the collection at that time. She has not been here, though, since the acquisition of the CUFOS and NICAP case files.
She'll never leave. I know that. I know that. If I was, I don't know how I would exit. I don't know if I could. I think I'd get a cot, a hot plate. I mean, incredible. I've got 1 minute left. Let me ask a couple of questions. You've got a wall of cabinets there with the glass doors on the front of them. What are we actually looking at?
That's actually the library side of the research room. That's my barrister bookcases, which house over 800 books on the UFO subject, going back, to the early years. In fact, I have a signed copy of The Saucers as I Saw Them by Kenneth Arnold, one of the holy grails of collectibles for those that are listening in your audience. But we have bound copies of Flying Saucer Review, bound copies of Fate Magazine going back in the day. And that's the thing. I've had more people come in here, Jimmy, and you have to appreciate, I laugh at it, but they'll walk in and they'll say, "Wow, you have a library." I said, "Yeah." They said, "No, you really have a library. You have audio recordings, microfilm, you have case files, news clippings, newspapers, books, journals, etc." And I look at them and I say, "Yeah, I told you I had a library." I said, "Did you think I was some schmuck with a bookcase in my living room?" I literally have a library, but again, it's designed for researchers to come here and review the data and make it accessible to serious UFO researchers.
Now, I keep looking at, so I just have to ask, you have two framed newspapers up
Yes.
all the way over. Right, okay, there's two. What's the third one? Not number one, number two, but the third one.
Right here?
Okay, that's one. The next one is two in the white frame, and that no, go back. That one. No. Okay, David. Over in the corner, you have a black frame with a newspaper in it.
Yeah.
Keep going left. Keep going left. That's number one, and then you have the white matte frame number two. What's number three?
Number three is an original Battle of LA front page newspaper.
That's what I thought.
About mystery air target. And in fact, the one next to it is an original February 25th, 1942 photo of the Battle of LA with the original news teletype.
Man, that's what I'm talking about. Let's take our break right here. This is Fade to Black. Our guest tonight, David Marler. We've got a lot to talk about. Now, the library that we're referring to, I popped a picture up on Twitter. You need to go check it out so you understand why I'm freaking out right now. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. More with David Marler when we come back after this short break. Stay with us.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
This is KGRA Digital Broadcasting Station, Salt Lake City, Utah, Van Buren, Arkansas.
This is Billy Carson with ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. Forbidden Knowledge TV has just reached its 1-year anniversary. That's right, 1 year. And as a show of appreciation, we are giving all new subscribers a free 30-day trial of ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. That's 30 days to binge watch thousands of movies, documentaries, conferences, workshops, lectures, yoga classes, meditation courses, and so much more. So log on to forbiddenknowledge.tv from your computer or mobile device, or get the Forbidden Knowledge TV app on Apple TV, Roku, Amazon, iTunes, or Google Play today and use coupon code 30daysfree. That's coupon code 30 days free on forbiddenknowledge.tv today.
Listen, I know, and you know, that you've always wanted your first crystal skull. Or maybe you're a collector just like me, but you just don't know where to go to find the real thing. Then I met Carolyn Ford over at EinsteinTheCrystalSkull.com. Carolyn is the guardian of Einstein, one of the most respected ancient crystal skulls in the world. All of her unique skulls have been imprinted sitting with Einstein in his sacred lodge and are carved from the finest gemstone and materials. Imprinting is the process of receiving the ancient wisdom from the master skull or master computer. Einstein, the ancient crystal skull. To see Carolyn's current collection of crystal skulls, just visit her store at EinsteinTheCrystalSkull.com or click on the banner over on our site. Don't forget to use the promo code Jimmy at checkout to receive 10% off of your order today. That's promo code Jimmy. Finding your first or next crystal skull is easy. Just visit EinsteinTheCrystalSkull.com. When you take the beans from Central America with dashes of Indonesian and African mixed in and then roasted to the dark side of fade to black, you create the ultimate brew of fringe. Introducing the Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Yes, Rivermoon's darkest customized roast was created for the love of Fade to Black. The alchemy of masterful roasting and smoking the beans is in every sip of this full-bodied, dark Java. I need my coffee dark, deep, with distinct bittersweet chocolate highlights, just like the bunker. Leaning further into the darkness of the roast is Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Just click on the banner at jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code F2BBLEND for 15% off of your order today.
Hello, I'm Katie, and you're listening to my main man, Jimmy Church, on jimmychurchradio.com.
Hi, this is Ray Hobbs here, repping the planet, and you're listening to my good friend, Jimmy Church, Fade to Black, on the Game Changer Network and the KGRA digital broadcast station.
This is Toby Kebbell. You're listening to jimmychurchradio.com. Don't hurt me, Jimmy. I'm only little.
Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier. And this is Ari Gold. We're the Honey Brothers. We are of the Honey Brothers. Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier. And I'm Ari Gold. We're the Honey Brothers. And you're listening to Jimmy Church. The Revolution.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and you can become an official Fadernaut by just going to our membership section at jimmychurchradio.com.
Hello, this is Serena Wright Taylor from Conscious Life Expo, and you're listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church, who holds the Lucky Pony record for the best astrological chart since 1963. True story.
This is Micah Hanks of the Gralien Report, and you're listening to Jimmy Church on Fade to Black, across the globe on the Game Changer Radio Network and the one and only KGRA Radio, The Planet.
Welcome back. Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, David Marler is here. Now, we've discussed his library enough. I'm watching, Third Stone just posted this hilarious video of people moving bookshelves around. That's probably pretty close to what David went through to get that put together. Yeah, David, it is indeed impressive, and that's a lot to be proud of for sure.
I would charge Linda, though. I would charge her right at the door. You need like a hand stamp, right?
Well, I would like to add before we move on, Jimmy, that the University of New Mexico here in Albuquerque has been extremely open to the UFO subject. I lectured on the UFO subject at the university a few years ago, and the reason for that was I've bequeathed this entire collection to the University of New Mexico, which they are readily open to accepting and will make it part of their Southwest Special Collections group. So, the goal is to collect the information, but ultimately we want to preserve it. So when I shuffle off this mortal coil, this material will still be preserved for perpetuity per the contract that I have with the University of New Mexico to be preserved. And much like Dr. James McDonald's research at the University of Arizona in Tucson, 50 years from now, it pleases my heart to know that people will be able to go and review these files.
Yeah, no doubt. And that is really cool. What about Clifford Stone? He's down the road, right there in Roswell. Right. What about his archives? And there's a lot of concern about, will they be preserved?
Sure. Yeah, I never did have any direct communication with Clifford, but I would hope that at the very least, since he was a Roswell, citizen, that hopefully that would be preserved at the Museum and Research Center at Roswell.
Yeah. Again, just an incredible amount of collecting that he did over the years, and thankfully. Absolutely. Yeah, he sent me everything on DVD. Well, not everything, but he sent me what he had up to that point.
Sure.
And I do have those, but that was a lot of material too. And Stanton Friedman and others over the years that have committed their lives to research and collecting as much data as they could. It always makes me wonder, where does this stuff go?
Well, absolutely. Well, unfortunately, a lot of it's relegated to the trash dumpster. We've lost so many collections over the years. I can't tell you. And so my goal is to try to preserve as much of this historical information as possible for two reasons. I know we want to move on to other things, but the goal is to preserve it for history's sake. The second is when we're looking at these modern occurrences that we're hearing about now through the DoD, the Pentagon, we need to look at it and compare it to the historical context that we have of all of these tens of thousands of case files. As I've always said, it doesn't matter what you believe regarding the UFO phenomenon. It only matters what the data reflects. Well, each one of these UFO reports, each one of these case files is a data point. The more data points we have, the more pieces of the puzzle we have. And I think in preserving that and analyzing all of that, that's how we're going to gain answers into the phenomenon.
Now, and just another personal question. Albuquerque is small. Most people don't realize that until you get there. It's a great city. It's beautiful.
Absolutely.
But half of that city is top secret. I mean, it's right.
Absolutely.
It's a lot of history there. You have Kirkland. When you pull into Albuquerque or you fly in and you see, you've got Sandia. Half of the city is researchers, secret things that are going on. You've got an Air Force base with a storied history with its ties to the UFO subject.
Absolutely.
It's all going down right there.
It's a fascinating state from just a perspective of military history and military development, to your point, but also, inextricably bound to that military history is the UFO phenomenon, whether you like it or not.
It's right there. It's tangible. It's one of the things I remember. This is years ago. Probably 25 years ago, maybe longer. First time I was in Albuquerque, pulled in. I was on a tour bus with a band, and we rolled by Kirkland, and I'm just looking at it. And I was thinking about, we got Bobby Unser, we got the racing, you know what I mean? We got that part of Albuquerque.
Absolutely.
And there's Kirkland.
Yeah.
It just blew my mind. And it's like half of the city is Sandia and Kirkland.
And not very far north, we have Los Alamos, and not very far south, we have White Sands Missile Range. So, and again, Jimmy, to your earlier point, all of these are tied to the UFO phenomenon when you look at the history.
Roswell, and now,
Roswell.
Of course, we have the new book Trinity by Jacques Vallée and Paula Harris.
Yes.
And again, right there. And
yeah,
when we're going to jump into what's going on today, but what is it about New Mexico? Right? That's just the question is just right there. For what is it? About
absolutely.
New Mexico? Is it the nuclear side? Is it the Native American? Is it the indigenous cultures?
Right.
Is it, what is it about New Mexico and UFOs?
Well, again, you'll probably have different answers to that question. My answer to that question is, and I say this in the context of looking at national and worldwide sightings as well, I think it's tied to military and nuclear development. Certainly New Mexico really paved the way. We had the first atomic detonation here at the Trinity site. And Roswell, of course, was the only atomic bomb wing at the time. I think, to the credit of, my friend Robert Hastings and others that have really pointed to this fact, there seems to be a strong correlation with military areas specific to nuclear weapons storage, nuclear weapons testing.
And then we have Socorro, right?
And Socorro, yeah. In fact, I know Lonnie Zamora's daughter. She's going to be coming out here very soon to see the collection for the first time.
Man, I can't wait. I'm waiting for my invitation.
You have an open invitation, my friend.
Man. All right, now, you've been at this for so long, and your knowledge on the Black Triangle subject probably is second to none with all of the researchers that have gone. Everybody looks to you for these answers. You've been chasing this for a very long time.
Yes.
What is going on today? It's out of control.
It is. That's a fair assessment, I think, Jimmy. It's interesting. I was just looking at Cheryl Costa's statistical work on black triangles. And, she just published a new book, an addendum to her first book, but she looked at UFO shapes and the reporting frequency of these per year. And when you look at her work from 2001 to 2015, you see with very minor fluctuation, a consistent trend upward with regard to frequency of sightings of triangular UFOs. Just for the sake of argument, 2001, she cited 395 reports on file from the data sources that she looked at. Compare that to 2015, 1,051.
Wow.
And between those two numbers, you see this gradual progression, this gradual increase in sightings. What's interesting about that is you also look at some of the other data like UFOCat, Dr. Donald Johnson with CUFOS, who's continuing to work on that. By the way, he just emailed me the other day and he said, David, I'm working on the latest version of UFOCat, which goes back to the 60s, Dr. David Saunders, who was with the Condon Committee. And he said, I've just incorporated about 248 cases from your book into the latest version. But we see this almost exponential trend.
I'm looking at the graph. Can you just for me hold that up to the camera? Let me look at this.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would say that is an ascending.
Don't you say that's pretty good?
Yeah, I think that's ascending.
And what's interesting about, you'll get different data, obviously, and different statistics depending on the areas you poll. But I think if you do kind of a systemic overview, overall, you see this gradual increase in triangular UFO sightings. Now, I found many from the 1950s, 1960s. And in fact, just with the latest data that I've got through CUFOS and NICAP, I've been finding historical cases going back to the 50s and 60s, not just of triangular UFOs, and I need to be very clear on this, triangular UFOs that are demonstrating the same flight characteristics and lighting patterns that we're hearing about today. When you look at that, it tends to erode this pervasive idea that you see circulating on the internet that these triangular UFOs are new, which is wrong. That's a false starter.
Sure.
And that they must be military. Well, if that's the case, then you must believe that we've had this advanced technology since the 40s, 50s, which personally I have a hard time swallowing that pill.
Right. If you go, historically speaking, you could almost say that Kenneth Arnold saw a black triangle. Almost. You can almost go there. But if you go what predates Kenneth Arnold,
is the Rhodes photographs that were taken in Phoenix.
Yes,
And
the William Rhodes photos. I absolutely love that case. I'm so glad you bring that up, Jimmy. Not many people do anymore.
It should be first in conversation.
That's another one, by the way. That Blue Book pretty much just simply dismissed him as unreliable. But there was really, when you look at the Blue Book report, there was nothing to really justify that assertion. And later in years, he was involved in a lot of scientific development. There was really nothing that you could hang your hat on that would question William Rhodes and his photos. But, the Air Force investigators just summarily brushed him off.
Now, going back to the Rhodes case specifically, and everybody, this happened in 1947, before Roswell, before Kenneth Arnold, and Rhodes stepped out. I have the facts wrong. In a general sense, this is what happened. He sees something, grabs his camera, snaps a few photographs of what I still can't explain. It was like no other aircraft that we had in 1947 for sure, but black triangle, little bit, weird shape in the back. Right. But the Air Force comes out, knocks on his door. I'm shortening the entire story. But grabs the photographs, grabs the negatives, and walks away, leaves him with nothing. And then they return the negatives sometime later, a couple of years, right?
I can't remember the time duration there, but yeah.
They had his stuff in his possession for a long time. And he was also ridiculed and teased about who he was and what he did. And things and tried to kind of kill his reputation. But all of this predated Kenneth Arnold and, of course, Roswell, which happened a few months later. And it's a very strange coincidence. Those photographs and what happened up in Washington and Tacoma and what ended up happening in Roswell in July of that year, the Rhodes photographs are overlooked.
Yeah, the Rhodes photographs actually happened just right after Roswell.
Was it after?
It was that first week in July. It was very close. All of those were in very close proximity to one another, so it's very easy to get those confused. But what's interesting about that particular series of photos, Jimmy, there were two, is the fact that prior to that, again, early years, right? We're talking very beginning of the summer wave of 47. Those were really some of the first structured vehicle UFO photos we had. There was a photograph by a Coast Guardsman in Washington by the name of Frank Ryman, who posted a photo, but it was just a simple light. So it was one of the early UFO photos, but early UFO photos of a daytime structured object. So it's very important in that sense.
I'm going to post a picture really quick so everybody can understand what we're talking about. And it's a very, very interesting photograph. If that was seen today, I would say that would be classified as a black triangle.
Yeah, I've always found that photo compelling, those two photos compelling. So I'm really glad that you resurrected that in the minds of many people.
And let me get this up really quick for everybody. The Rhodes UFO, 1947. And I'm popping this up, so you know what? I like doing this live on the air because everybody can understand this is not taped. No, this is all going down live. So here you go, everybody. Did I grab it? It's not here. Come on. Let me try this again. Oh, it is saying that this is not. You know what I do? I cheat with everything. When you grab stuff off of the web, it'll have a different file extension. And I turn around and change it. But this is not working. Okay, I'll leave it up to Twitter to post. I've tried enough times. Okay, now, when we're talking about, I want to get to 60 Minutes in just a second.
Sure.
I'm sure you were interested in the Jeremy Corbell leaked video of the flying toasters, flying pyramids. Flying pyramids. Let's go with pyramids.
Sure.
Okay. You've been doing this for a long time. When you first put your eyes on that video, what did you think?
Well, obviously I was compelled by it because it seemed to depict a triangular object. I know Corbell has referenced them being pyramidal, but what I see is a triangular object. I don't see a three-dimensional triangular object. But on second and third review and subsequent reviews after that, I have to tell you, of all the quote-unquote leaked DoD videos, I'm least impressed by that one.
There is, okay, let me continue the line of questioning. I'm surprised by your answer. but okay. There's like 30 or 40 other triangular anomalies in that video.
Which I have a problem with.
Right. Okay. So what was your assessment?
Well, I don't want to say my personal assessment, and it's based on the work of other people who have posted this online, who have done a really good job of dissecting this one, I believe. When you look, to your point, Jimmy, I'm glad you brought this up. When you look at the individual light sources captured in that short little video sequence, they all take on a triangular appearance. That is immediately suspect when it comes to any UFO video. And now, I am not a photographic or video expert. I've said that on many interviews, and I usually solicit the input from those individuals. But that being said, when you see all of the light sources taking on the same triangular appearance, it is suggestive, not conclusive, but suggestive, there's a common denominator. And I believe the common denominator is the aperture of the camera. In other words, there's a bokeh lens, which is a triangular aperture. If you take any light source or sources and take it out of focus, it will take on the shape of the aperture of the camera. For those that have been in UFOs for a long time, like yourself and myself, we remember all the ubiquitous UFO videos from the 1980s and 90s. They all took on this like Batman shape appearance. That was a characteristic of the lens associated with the VHS camcorders of the time. It's simply an out-of-focus light source, and in absence of focusing on the light, it takes on the image of the aperture of the camera. So I'm immediately suspect with regard to that. In addition, unlike some of the other DoD videos, we don't see any rapid acceleration. We don't see any anomalous behavior. In fact, I would argue, and if someone can prove me wrong, I'm happy to accept that. I would argue the main quote-unquote triangular object that you see seems to show conventional strobe lights. And I question, is that a conventional military or commercial aircraft? Probably military aircraft, because it was in a military operations area. But I do question that particular video more so than any other. Now, I will take issue also with Corbell on many statements he made publicly. He says, this is the best DoD video we have to date regarding UAPs or UFOs. I completely disagree with that statement. And no offense to Jeremy Corbell, he's not a UFO researcher. He's a film producer.
He's a good hype man. He's a good hype man.
He's a great hype man.
Yes.
But, with professional respect in place, I have to say, night vision gear, which is simply light amplification imagery, immediately takes on a granular quality. You don't have high resolution. And I say that also compared to the FLIR images that we have. At least with FLIR, forward-looking infrared, we can see heat signatures emanating from the objects, or, as you know, Jimmy, lack thereof. So if we were looking at an F-16, we could see the afterburners clear as day on an infrared image. We don't see any heat signatures specific to anything indicating propulsion regarding the FLIR imagery. So for Corbell to say that this is the best imagery we have and it's night vision, light amplification, I disagree with that. I think the FLIR imagery we have is the most compelling because it gives us insight into possible propulsion technology or lack thereof.
But aren't you comforted in knowing that the Anunnaki are FAA compliant now with their strobe lights?
Well, yeah, they don't have to worry about being fined by the FAA. Yeah, that's for sure.
I mean, they're letting us know where they are. That's.
But let me play devil's advocate for a moment for you and the audience.
Sure.
If we are all honest with each other with regard to all of these, quote unquote DoD videos that have been released, we don't have insights into the analysis. We don't have insights into the surrounding documentation pertaining to these videos. I will go on record today and state all of the DoD videos, whether it's the gimbal, the go fast, the tic tac, they're all unidentified. That's all we can say at this point.
The coverage has been UAP, right? Those three letters. Mm-hmm. Why do you think the change in, going from UFO to UAP? Because with pop culture, with the rest of the world, UFO means one thing. It means little green men, flying saucers, not of this earth, interstellar, unidentified flying object. That's fine, UFO. Sure. But that's in popular culture, UFO means one thing. It means Martians.
Absolutely. I think they did it for two reasons. One is to get away from the stigma that's associated with the acronym UFO.
Right.
But also, I think it was by design, and I believe maybe even Lou Elizondo has referenced this. I can't recall. But I think part of it was a deliberate strategy. In other words, you have great researchers out there like John Greenwald and others filing FOIA requests. Well, if you're asking for any government documents pertaining to UFOs, if you're calling them UAPs, it's not going to be a blip on the radar. So by changing the name of the phenomenon to UAP, it makes it almost impossible, at least prior to December 2017, when we publicly realized that's what they were calling them. If we were filing FOIA requests, we would have still been filing FOIA requests for UFO reports. And so by calling them UAP, it circumvented any type of public acknowledgement or recognition if you're filing for, because again, FOIA requests are very specific. And if you're asking for UFOs, they're going to do a search query for UFO. UAP ain't going to come up on the radar.
Well, okay, fair enough. But you have a research library there. Are you going to call it a UAP research library?
I was just chatting with George Knapp a few weeks ago, and I kept going UFO, UAP, and I kept correcting myself. I said, I'm sorry, George. I said, I've been doing this 31 years. I'm old school. I still call them UFOs.
That's
he goes,
it.
No, fair enough.
That's it. I mentioned that last night on the show. I'm still a UFO guy. I'm going old school. Our guest tonight is David Marler. We've got a lot to go over tonight. Great conversation so far. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. More with David after this short break. Stay with us.
Way out here, we listen to Jimmy Church.
You're listening to Fade to Black.
Always on the edge of the hottest alternative talk. Jimmy Church with Fade to Black. KGRARadio.com.
¿Qué tal, mis amigos? Yo soy Mario Carson, el tiburón, y los invito para que escuchen a mi buen amigo Jimmy Church Radio. ¡Claro que sí!
Do you want to be an official Fadernaut? Of course you do. This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black. Just go to our membership section at jimmychurchradio.com. This is Jimmy Church, and I'll be at the UFO MegaCon this June 6th through the 12th, 2021 in Laughlin, Nevada. The Laughlin UFO MegaCon is unique. It's 7 days of education and disclosure. It's unlike all other UFO conferences. The Laughlin UFO Mega Conference specializes in bringing you new people, offering new information and disclosure. All of this is offered at prices so low you can actually afford to be there. For instance, 7-night hotel packages, 1 or 2 people, start at just $320 inclusive. Education and disclosure is why the Laughlin UFO Mega Conference exists. Join us for all 7 days, or a half a week, or just a day or two, but join us. Go to LaughlinUFOMegaConference.com. Register now. The only thing keeping you from being with all of us is you. Just go to LaughlinUFOMegaConference.com. Fadernauts. When you think about the future of our country and where we're headed, do you wonder about the food supply? I do. Disruptions in the food supply chain could be disastrous, and they usually occur with little warning. That's why the smartest thing you can do today is to stockpile emergency food, water, and other essentials. I personally recommend My Patriot Supply. They're the nation's largest emergency preparedness company, serving millions of customers for more than a decade. In fact, they're the only source my family trusts for our preparedness plan. You should too. Right now, save 20% off a full 4-week supply of delicious meals that provide 2,000 calories a day. Saving 20% helps too, doesn't it? Especially now. So go to preparewithjimmy.com and get ready. That's preparewithjimmy.com. There's no time to lose. Do it now.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
You listen to us, and we listen to you. And so does the CIA. KGRARadio.com.
You are listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Oi, oi, I'm Reese Evans. You're listening to Jimmy Church. This is Revolution. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution is on radio. Ciao.
All right, welcome back. Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, David Marler is here. Yeah, I slapped my biceps. You should see David laughing. It's time to put the guns on, man. We got to put the gloves on and get ready. David, I just want to go straight at this and not play around, and which is this. Sunday night was a big event. 60 Minutes, it played up, social media. It was all go time. I was there, had my popcorn. I'm not playing, man. I was ready. And I know you did the same thing. So what did you expect beforehand? I want to say that first. Where were your expectations?
My expectations were pretty much exactly what we were dished out. In other words, I don't think that the UFO community was going to hear anything new. But that being said, and I have to emphasize this, that being said, despite a lot of negative comments on social media and elsewhere within the UFO community, my attitude is this segment was not for us. This segment was for the general public. In other words, we're doggedly following this story, right, since the December 2017 New York Times article and all the successive revelations that have come out.
Sure.
But we have to realize it's not just about us. If we're going to budge the needle with regard to respectability, with regard to the subject, if we're going to erode that stigma associated with the subject, it doesn't have to be in our eyes. It has to be in the eyes of the general public. And I think the 60 Minutes news segment did that. You have to realize most people that watch that probably would never give the time of day to the UFO subject. And other than Robert Bigelow being interviewed by 60 Minutes, Jimmy, in my memory, I don't ever remember 60 Minutes touching the UFO subject. And so I think it was a game-changing moment as it relates to the general public's education on the subject.
I would argue that it could have been game-changing. And in that, I think that CBS missed the mark, and I think they did it intentionally. Now, let me back up.
Sure.
Don't you think we keep going back to UFO versus UAP? Had CBS had UFO in the background, right? Yeah. The world would have understood what they were talking about.
Right.
But instead, it was UAPs, and they didn't take that opportunity. I'm talking about CBS to explain what a UAP even is.
Yeah. Well, I do believe at one point the moderator did say, so we're talking UFOs.
Only once. Yes. Yeah. Only once in the beginning.
Exactly. And then UAP was kind of the nomenclature moving forward. But I still think it resonated with the general public. And I say that because I just saw on social media just today that BBC Two ran a serious news piece on UAPs, UFOs. And the researcher from the UK stated, up until this point, we've been waiting for the British media to get with the story and to start talking about it. So
right.
I think it's going to be baby steps. I know, we all have this, enthusiasm to see the story really just be mainstream. And I think it is, but it's in baby steps. Slowly but surely, we're starting to see that stigma erode with regard to the UFO subject, whether you call it UAP, UFO. And I say that because in 1990, I never thought we would be where we are today. And, maybe for people that are relatively new to the UFO subject, circa 2017, this might not seem like much. But I'm here to tell you, when you're talking to researchers back in the 70s and the 80s, they never thought we would get to this point, because back then it was constant denial. There's nothing to the UFO subject. It's not a threat to national security. And Jimmy, the revelations we've had in the last 2 to 3 years are completely 180 to that. They are acknowledging the phenomenon is real. They're acknowledging it's a key word here, potential threat to national security.
Now, let's stay right there for a second, David. There is a spin that is obvious about this threat, which what goes with threat, you have fear.
Sure.
And that spin has been put on this. Now, as far as I know, now I'm just speaking.
Sure.
I haven't seen any UFO videos, UAP videos, of photon cannons shooting planes out of the sky, commercial or military.
No, and that's a great point you bring up, Jimmy. But I think what we have to do is we have to appreciate where the news is coming from. We're getting information from people like Chris Mellon. We're getting information from people like Lou Elizondo. We're getting information through DOD and former DOD sources. These people are hardwired. It's their job to look at everything through the lens of national security. And not to say that it is a threat, and that's why I said I was very careful, the potential threat. If you have objects that can fly rings around your latest aircraft, if it is entering restricted military airspace near sensitive military assets, we don't know where it's from, we don't know why it's here, we don't know what it's going to do. Those people, and we pay our tax dollars to these people, those people are tasked with the defense of our country. And so, not saying it's a threat, but it is a potential threat, given the fact that it does seem to demonstrate superiority to our most modern aircraft and defense systems.
And help me understand, when you say that, what demonstrates to you air superiority, where this is something that, now, if it's otherworldly, if it's ET, and they can get here, they're superior to us.
Absolutely.
There's no question. I'm not going to argue that point.
Yeah, that's not even a question.
No, it's not. It's not a question. But what demonstrates superiority to you?
Well, not so much to me, but I'll defer to the naval pilots. Like
right?
David
Is it
Fravor
their
and others.
testimony? Right.
Absolutely. Again, I go to the experts. I trust their testimony, their judgment. The fact that this object can hover for extended periods of time, completely do a 180, as he said, whoop, on his interview, and immediately suddenly accelerate. They can go from, based on the Aegis radar systems, not eyewitness testimony, and I want to talk about that in a little bit, where they had multiple objects they were tracking on Aegis radar systems that went from 80,000 feet altitude elevation down to almost ground level in the matter of 1 to 2 seconds. We can't do that. The ability for these things to go supersonic without generating a sonic boom, which has been demonstrated time and time again by UFO reports, both military and otherwise. The ability for these things to hover and accelerate with no visible signs of propulsion. In other words, we're not seeing afterburners like an F-16. These things are clearly being maneuvered and orchestrated by some other radical type of propulsion technology. We're not talking combustion engines.
Now, why, and staying focused on 60 Minutes here,
sure.
When Lou Elizondo, who I've interviewed on this program, and I appreciate everything that he has done to elevate this into the public eye, but Lou said something that very clearly and dramatically. He's, 700 Gs, 13,000 miles per hour, defying physics.
Yeah.
And he makes these points right in a row. 60 Minutes didn't do anything with that.
No.
They let that just float on by. And if your mom or dad, you're middle America or whatever, and you're watching, and that just blows by. Yeah. That was an opportunity for 60 Minutes to bring in a scientist, bring in a physicist to explain what 700 Gs really means.
I agree. And not to defend 60 Minutes, but I would argue that truly, Jimmy, and I think you'll agree with this, as will your audience, that could have been a 1-hour segment on the UAP subject. Unfortunately, it was relegated to maybe 8 to 12 minutes. I don't know. I didn't count the minutes, but it could have been a full program, to be quite honest. And to your point, to fully cover the story to the breadth and scope it should have been.
Yeah, the most important point I think that Lou brought up, and I think needs to be discussed, was that. And if you go back, this is another thing that I found very interesting. If you go back to the opening segment with Anderson Cooper and facial recognition, they brought in the police departments, they brought in a specialist to explain, and to bring in both points. And so everybody understood exactly the significance and the importance of what is going on with this software. Right. Yeah. And that didn't happen with the UAP.
No, it didn't. And again, not to belittle the testimony of the naval pilots that were on, I certainly appreciate their input on that segment. But no, to make it a better, well-rounded, more, investigated story, if we're truly talking about investigative journalism, right, Jimmy? We should have had some experts weigh in on that.
Yeah, we should have. And now... And this is my next point to this, and I don't want to seem like I'm kicking a dead horse here, right? But the opportunity for 60 Minutes to explain that this may be otherworldly, right? That this may be, an extraterrestrial civilization visiting us, was not explored, and because they let that element go, it appears to the public eye, I'm stating the way I perceive it, that this is a military issue, an adversarial issue, a Russian issue, a Chinese technology leap issue, and not necessarily something else that may be visiting us from Zeta Reticuli. And I think that's the way it was left in the end.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think different people are going to come away with it with different perspectives, just like the UFO situation in general, right, Jimmy? Depending on what we talk about. But I do feel it's just one more step moving us forward, though. Again, going back to the New York Times article, December 2017, where, for all intents and purposes, I mean, they have acknowledged there's a phenomenon. And so as I like to characterize it, we've moved beyond the archaic, are UFOs real, to what are UFOs, which I've always said should be the fundamental question that should be asked. Not are, UFOs exist, yes, unidentified flying objects. They could be misidentifications. They could be extraterrestrial vehicles. God knows what they could be. But I do feel that we're moving in a positive direction. And admittedly, it's maybe not as fast as you and I would like it. But I do feel that with the 60 Minutes, this is going to now yield additional mainstream news outlets, which in the last few days we've seen, right? Since the 60 Minutes.
CNN, BBC, NBC.
BBC too.
Yes.
And so I know that, we're trying to, curb our anticipation, our enthusiasm, but I do see a forward moving trend. Now, that being said, unfortunately, or I should say fortunately, as it relates to the 60 Minutes segment, we didn't see the ubiquitous skeptics with their tired arguments. But we have seen them on other news outlets where they weigh in on the DoD videos. And, I'm really getting tired of their labored generalizations as opposed, we have these astronomers like Seth Shostak, for example, that says, well, I'm looking at this DoD video and it could be a lens flare. It could be an aberration of the camera. Well, with all respect to Seth Shostak, I'm sure he's a great astronomer and said he loves him. He doesn't know, the state-of-the-art DoD detection and defense systems. He doesn't know their capabilities. He doesn't know the specs. And I guarantee there are people within the Pentagon and DoD that know those systems much better than Seth Shostak. And if it's gone through the vetting process on their end, I tend to believe them over Seth Shostak.
Why do you think Seth is weighing in his opinion here, where it seems that, man, I don't want to poo-poo on SETI. I don't.
No, not at all.
But
I respect
either
SETI.
right. Either you are curious as to life in the Milky Way and throughout the universe, and you believe that there is something else out there beyond planet Earth, and you're on the team here, or you are not. And that's the issue that I take with Seth. I believe in SETI, and this is...
I do too.
Clearly, if SETI didn't exist, then we would never know, right? We have to look, right? We have to listen, because if we don't, we'll never know. I appreciate that. But Seth comes sometimes, I think he's coming in with more of a negative side of this, and he's not playing on the same team.
Right. No, and I completely echo what you just said, Jimmy. I respect SETI. In fact, in my book, towards the end in my book, I call out their efforts and I commend them for their efforts going back to the 60s. But the academic elitism that I see, in the sense that, well, we're academics and we're looking for life out there. You're postulating that there's UFOs within our atmosphere and they're already here. It's kind of like they can't see the forest for the trees. They're looking for it light years away when, in fact, we may have objects. In fact, we do have objects. I'm not saying that. The DoD said that. We have objects of unknown origin moving within our atmosphere. They're UFOs, UAPs, call them what you will. But, when Seth Shostak makes these blanket explanations, and what I find interesting is, historically, as well as even now, the skeptical arguments usually only address one aspect of the phenomenon. In other words, he talks about the DoD videos that, well, it could just be an aberration of the camera, it could be a lens flare. How does that explain David Fravor and McKenzie and the other naval pilots that visually saw the object at the same time, I might add, that the Aegis radar system, our state-of-the-art technology at the time, was tracking these things? John Radcliffe, actually, back in December or January, Trump's, national security advisor, stated on interviews for Fox News that we're not talking about a pilot sighting. We're talking about multiple sensors tracking simultaneously these objects. If it was anything else, Jimmy, if it was a car or a commercial aircraft, and you say, I see it visually, I'm tracking it based on multiple tracking systems, we wouldn't question the fact that the object, whatever it is there. But because it's a UFO or UAP, suddenly we try to make these blanket explanations.
Yes, and the skeptic argument, people like Michael Shermer, and I think he's a very entertaining guy. I'm sure he's a lot of fun at a dinner party.
Sure.
but their skeptical position is, come on, everybody's crazy. This is a psychological phenomenon. Right. It is mass hysteria. Mm-hmm. There is nothing going on. There's a reasonable, rational explanation for everything.
Absolutely.
Without presenting a rational argument. Their position is everybody's nuts.
Yeah, well, and mixed in with that is usually the statement that UFO researchers, UFO believers think this is extraterrestrial. For the record, for your audience, with regard to these DoD encounters, I said it earlier, I will say it again as a matter of record. I don't know what they are. They're unidentified. Again, the skeptics try to put words in the mouth of credible researchers like myself. Now, there are non-credible researchers out there that jump to the extraterrestrial hypothesis. These must be aliens. They got to be aliens. I believe they're aliens. I know they're aliens. I'm not going down that pathway, Jimmy. They're unidentified. That's all we can say. If it turns out to be Russian, great. If it turns out to be extraterrestrial, great. If it turns out to be some type of aberration, great. I highly doubt it, though, that it's going to be an aberration. Again, because of the multiple visual sightings and objective instrumentation that's recorded these objects.
Now, I firmly believe that the leaked videos that have surfaced lately, and I can even go back to Tic Tac and Go Fast and Gimbal, that all of that is crap. It's not the good stuff. And if that's what's going to be in the UAP-TF report presented to the Senate Intelligence Committee, we've got a big problem, because there has to be some really cool stuff. What we are seeing is not the good stuff. Going back to Radcliffe. Radcliffe slipped up. He said something that I cannot believe nobody grabbed onto this and took this to the next level. He said, we have satellite tracking data.
Yeah.
Holy crap.
Yep.
Okay, what is he referring to there? That's what needs to be in this report.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I agree, and I'm glad you picked up on that, because I did as well, Jimmy. And in fact, some of the skeptics have used that as a statement. We have tons of satellites, filming and photographing every inch of this planet. How come they're not being detected on satellite? To your point, just because we don't see it doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
When he said that, there was a couple of points that made it into the media where I don't know if it's cognitive dissonance or where there's been a general laziness in true journalism. But when Radcliffe makes a statement like that, you go after that as a journalist. What are you talking about? What are you referring to? Dr. Eric Davis in Leslie Kane and Ralph Blumenthal's article before last, about 6 months ago, Dr. Eric Davis, buried in the article, makes one of the most incredible claims in the history of mankind, where he says, we have crash flying saucers. Our government had, and nobody seized on that moment. Nobody went after Dr. Davis. And, okay, you're saying something here that is probably the most historic statement in the history of the world, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, what's more significant than that statement?
Well, to your point, though, Jimmy, it's almost like that's the third rail that nobody wants to touch, right? At least within mainstream journalism. It's like, we could accept pilots are seeing objects in the air, but if you're saying that they crashed and we recovered debris, that opens up that whole can of worms with conspiracy. And so to your point, it's like they're actively avoiding touching on that one. It's like that's the third rail of ufology.
I just want to I want to know what his source is, because for the New York Times to put a quote from a quoted source, the quoted source is named, it's in the article, that's got to be vetted. You got 1, 2, 3 sources behind that. So if the New York Times is going to include this and it passes the editorial test, it passes the attorneys, it goes through legal, and it makes it into the article, where are the sources? Yeah. What is Eric Davis talking about here? And as far as I know, no journalist has chased Eric Davis down for him to explain this quote.
If they've chased him down, he's not talking.
I mean, I just don't get it. And it goes back to Radcliffe, too, as well. We are in extraordinary times right now. Big things are being mentioned and talked about, and there isn't enough journalism to go back and get this stuff cleared up for the public. And I think these are big, big points that are being made, David.
What's interesting is you're getting multiple sources that are starting to open up, like John Brennan, former CIA Director John Brennan, even made statements.
Correct.
People that never touched on the subject before are now opening up. And I will tell you, Jimmy, I have had, since the December 2017 release, and actually since I was on History Channel's Unidentified with Chris Mellon, I have had more active and retired military personnel reaching out to me. About a month ago, I had a retired Air Force colonel who was in charge of the advanced weapons for the Air Force here in the research room where I'm sitting, along with a retired lieutenant colonel in the Air Force. I did a local radio show. They heard about it. They came here to talk to me about UFOs. No major revelations, I will tell you and your audience that. But the point is, in 31 years, I've never had the caliber of people like that reaching out. And I've had a number of other lieutenant colonels in the Air Force reaching out over the last year. 31 years I've been doing this, 30 years, up until this year. But only because now the tide is changing, the skepticism, the stigma is eroding. These people are starting to come out and they want to talk.
Should the public be worried? I mean, with this threat and the fear of what may be going on, the two general areas off the coast of San Diego and off of the eastern, in the Atlantic Ocean, off the coast of Florida, and now Charlotte and those areas. Mm-hmm. Should the public be worried?
I don't like to be an alarmist. I don't think people need to be worried. However, you were talking about the comment by Eric Davis that nobody really picked up on. There was a comment that was made by the Navy spokesman back in 2019 that I feel journalists and a lot of the UFO community glossed over. The question I ask is, why now? Being a UFO historian and seeing decades-long denials, why now? And that is, I think, the fundamental question with regard to all of this. Why now are they starting to open up and talk about this phenomenon? And I believe it goes back to a statement made by the Navy spokesman when they acknowledged they were basically drafting official policy and procedure for naval personnel to report this. They stated in that press release, due to the increased frequency of UAP incursions in sensitive military areas. Not to be alarmist, but I believe that is a key insight into why we're starting to see all this now. I feel that they're seeing this exponential increase in activity specific to military activity areas, military operation areas, and they are projecting that, and I don't think they like to see where that's headed. And I think rather than the tail wagging the dog, they want to be able to control this message before something happens.
Well, is the message Mars attacks? Is the message right? Is that the message?
I hope not. Again, anytime I talk about threat, I think, again, they, in their position, they have to view it as a potential threat. But in the context of history, we've had these UFOs around for at least 70 plus years, right? In the modern era, mm-hmm. It may even go back to ancient aliens, ancient times. I don't know. I can't go there. But we do seem to see, with rare exception, fairly benign behavior on the part of these UFOs. So I would like to personally believe that they are benign, that they're not malevolent, that they're not here to eat us or to invade us. But one has to question, I think logically, if the military is seeing an increase in activity specific to military areas, is this reconnaissance. And just using the corollary that we can use, namely human behavior, when we send reconnaissance out on such a high level, it's usually quite often a prelude to war.
Well, okay, I've got to take a break right here. But I've got to get the break in. But the question is, and we'll follow this up after the break, which is the obvious one. The Tic Tac is over San Diego. It's over a carrier group, right? The Roosevelt. Why didn't the Tic Tac happen over Los Angeles? We'll explore all of this when we come back. Our guest tonight, David Marler. Stay with us.
Hi everybody, this is Rob Halford, the Metal Guard on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
This is KGRA Digital Broadcasting Station. Salt Lake City, Utah. Van Buren, Arkansas.
Why is it we're not very good with our health regimen until it's too late? We don't put oil in the car until the engine blows up. When the body's out of balance, your health is not so good. Give your body some love. Log on to GetTheT.com. That's GetTheT.com. Try our Life Change Tea, which cleanses you from harmful intruders. A clean colon is one of the ways to bring the body in balance. We also carry organic supplements to help you get where you need to go. So do your body a favor. Log on to GetTheT.com. That's GetTheT.com. You can even visit our sales page to save some dough. Does anybody call money dough anymore? Anyway, if you're looking for short, helpful health tips, go to YouTube and punch in Health Matters Now. That's Health Matters Now. So, log on to GetTheT.com, shop, get balanced, then learn some cool tips at Health Matters Now. You'll be glad you did. That's GetTheT.com.
Your contact for current news and trending topics. KGRARadio.com.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and I only drink Fade to Black blend coffee from River Moon. Just click on the River Moon coffee banner at jimmychurchradio.com. Promo code F2B Blend.
This is the only way forward.
This is Fade to Black. Make contact. KGRARadio.com.
When you're in the house for longer periods of time, you can see them flying or running across the floor. Ooh, yuck. They're unhealthy, gross, and disgusting. Bugs. I loathe bugs. We keep a clean home, but occasionally bugs show up. Well, I found something that is tougher than bugs. Orange Guard. On contact, it kills hidden bugs, including ants, roaches, and fleas. Plus, Orange Guard is a residual repellent. All of the ingredients of Orange Guard are on the FDA generally recognized as safe list. Orange Guard may be used around food, humans, and pets. It comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Orange Guard, available at orangeguard.com, Whole Foods, and Ace Hardware.
Gold loves chaos, uncertainty, and disarray. History shows us what gold does when people aren't sure about the government, the stock market, their jobs, or their retirement savings. Our national debt is skyrocketing. Gold and other precious metals are a defense measure against inflation and a stock market that might take years to recover. So what can you do right now to protect yourself? Call United Gold Group. We offer gold and other precious metals delivered securely within 72 hours. Are you worried about the stock market? We can also help you set up a real gold or silver IRA or a 401k. Safe and secure. United Gold Group makes gold ownership affordable. Call now and get up to $2,500 in free gold or silver with a qualified IRA. Call 800-753-8534. That's 800-753-8534 or visit UnitedGoldGroup.com.
You want to know a secret? I love ponies. I really love ponies. I'm serious. I couldn't stay sane without ponies to brush.
Why fade to black? Because you never got that pony, damn it.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
Welcome back. Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. I got to pay the bills. I got to do that right now. I got to do it. I got to pay the bills. And this is the deal. I have my own VPN. You've got to get your own VPN. Click on the links below. Everything is right there. Get your own VPN. I have a totally secured location here. Nobody knows where I am at. Nobody. And when you click, and this is something very serious. When I talk about my internet search traffic, my location, my ISP, all of that is hidden. I use Virtual Shield. And it's all simple to do. virtualshield.com/fade to black. Do that right now. 50% off today. Click on the link below, Virtual Shield. It's right there, Virtual Shield. You will get Virtual Shield VPN for 50% off. You have a strict no logs policy. You've got encrypted servers all around the world. You can do whatever you want. It's right there in your browser. You just click on it. Boom. You're invisible. That's what you have to do. virtualshield.com. Click on the link below. 50% off today. Do it now. Our guest tonight, David Marler. Now, David, okay. In the 60 minutes, the question is why and why now? In the 60 minutes UAP segment, they brought on Ryan, this pilot. Great, and I loved it. But he said something that I was actually taken aback by. I'm a military brat, okay? I lived on Army bases all over the world. Not all over the world, all over the United States and in Panama and Germany, too, as well.
Sure.
And I appreciate the men and women in our service.
Absolutely.
But when he said, oh, man, every day for 2 years, wait a minute. Did he shoot at any of them? Right? Did any shoot at him?
Yeah.
Where is the negative connotation here? And with the IG opening up this investigation that was announced a couple of weeks ago on Monday, wanting to know what actions the military has been taking with the UAP, unidentified aerial, right there, phenomena in print, says to me, maybe we want to know. I'm talking about the Department of Defense. Have you been shooting at them? Have they shot at you? When I see the word actions there.
Absolutely.
And so for a pilot to say that this has been going on, every day for 2 years, I want to know, as an American citizen, what did you do about it?
Absolutely. No. Yeah. The question is, have we fired on these UAPs? And I was taken aback by that same statement that I realized that they were seeing increased frequency, but when you said every day for 2 years, that's a pretty tall statement.
It's a huge statement. And apparently nobody's doing anything.
No, but it does beg the question. If they knew that these things were showing up on a daily basis, unlike going with David Fravor and McKenzie's testimony that, they were just simply doing training exercises, they weren't armed at the time. If they're happening every day for 2 years straight, certainly at some point you think they would have sent something up with live ammunition. And then it begs the further question, did they fire on any of these? And if they did, what was the response, if any?
The same thing with July of 2019. And, again, right off the coast of San Diego, if you are concerned with swarms of flying pyramids over, you've got phalanx, you've got chain guns, you've certainly got missiles, you've got air. And as far as I know, in those I didn't see any action being taken. And as a commanding officer, I would want to know, if I'm an admiral of a fleet, What are you guys doing about this, or are you just allowing it to happen? Those things were slow.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely. Well, I think we have to acknowledge, and it's great that you bring this up, Jimmy, we're looking at a pinhole. We're looking through a pinhole at this subject. In other words, we're only getting table scraps of what they really have, the information that they really know. And that's not conspiracy theory. That's just fact. It's naive in the extreme to think what we've been shown is all they have.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's naive in the extreme. But, that being said, it's going to be interesting to see, fast forwarding, when this report comes out, if it sees the light of day as far as the general public is concerned, what is it going to contain? What is it going to have? Now, I know there's a lot of UFO researchers and UFO proponents out there that are just holding their breath in anticipation. I'm not losing sleep over it.
What are you expecting? What are you expecting in this report, David?
Well, again, I hate to make predictions because usually when you make predictions, you're going to prove yourself wrong. So I feel that we might get a few quotes from the report, but I think the report in and of itself is going to be fairly watered down. The reason I say that, I don't just say that flippantly. I always say the best predictor of future behavior is past behavior. We keep talking about these DOD videos, Jimmy, and admittedly, we first saw these in December 2017. It's been 4 years, almost 4 years now, since those videos have been released. I ask you and I ask your audience, how many pages of official documentation with regard to reporting and analysis do we have of those videos? The answer is 0. If we don't have anything from videos that were released almost 4 years ago, do you really expect them to just, share the keys of the universe with us with this report? I feel that there will be a report submitted to members of Congress, but I think that we need to clearly delineate Congress versus the general public. I feel we might get some quotes. They're going to be very innocuous, very, vague, ambiguous quotes that, yes, we acknowledge there's a phenomenon. I think it's going to echo statements we've already heard, to be quite honest with you. But I hope I'm wrong.
For those out there that say that nothing new was brought out in the 60 Minutes piece, I caught one thing where I sat forward and went, okay, that is something I have asked before, and here it is, which was this. It was very interesting that after the 2004 Nimitz encounter, nobody was interested in it for 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
Now, wait a minute. Right? Defying laws of physics, which can't happen. The universe operates in a certain parameter with laws of physics. But to have something go from 80,000 feet down to sea level in a second, I would think would garner some interest inside the Department of Defense. And what David Fravor saw, and Alex Dietrich, right, his wing person.
Yes.
No interest. So does that say to you? I would say that the captain of the Nimitz has some explaining to do. Why didn't he freak out and scream to the Joint Chiefs about this extraordinary event with a 50-foot wingless Tic Tac just running around for a couple of weeks around a carrier battle group? Why? Somebody has to answer that question.
And enter the Inspector General, as you brought up earlier, Jimmy. I've talked to a couple people that have dealt with the Inspector General's office in their capacity working for government military, and they said it's not a very pleasant thing. In fact, one likened it to going to see your proctologist for a regular examination. So I think with the Inspector General getting involved now, it's really going to up the ante. Again, though, I temper my enthusiasm as far as what we in the general public will find out or be enlightened to. A lot of this stuff may be classified, and classified for good reason, potentially.
Now, what do you make of 2 U.S. Navy battle groups, one on each coast, where these incursions have happened, but exclusively with the United States Navy and carrier battle groups. This can't be a United States thing. Hasn't China experienced this? Hasn't Russia experienced this? Great Britain, India, Israel, Brazil.
I have to believe the answer is yes. And again, I just simply go back to history. Being a UFO historian, archivist, the British MOD has been involved in UFOs and had military encounters, as has almost every other country on the face of this planet. I think, again, it's naive in the extreme to think that today in this modern age, they're still not experiencing those things.
Why haven't they mentioned them? Certainly,
well, that's good. That's a good question, isn't it? I mean, quite often the U.S. leads other countries as far as initiatives and things like that. I'm waiting to see if we are going to have revelations or admissions on the part of other countries now that the U.S. has kind of led the way and at least broaching the subject without the ridicule factor.
Look, you are unidentified. The countries around the world have all seen what TTSA and Tom DeLonge and Elizondo and Mellon and David Fravor and the videos that have replayed over and over and over again, not only on television, but in the media and throughout the internet. It's been 4 years. And I haven't, as far as I know, Australia hasn't stepped forward, Japan hasn't stepped forward, China hasn't stepped forward, the United Kingdom hasn't stepped forward, Russia. Nobody has said, you know what, it's happening to us too. We are concerned. Right. Here's our data. Let's talk about this. That hasn't happened. Right. It's been exclusive with the United States Navy.
Well, and I think some of that, at least with regard to our adversaries, we have to think about kind of the global landscape. I think Russia and I think North Korea and China are probably reveling in the fact that they see that U.S. military forces are dealing with these objects and they don't know what they are. And admittedly, even in press releases, they say it could be Russian, it might be Chinese. I think our adversaries, and I'm not saying that I necessarily believe this, but I think our adversaries are reveling in the idea that the Pentagon might be trembling in their pants, thinking the Russians have somehow leapfrogged in technology, or the North Koreans. They're reveling in that. Now, our allies, that's a different story, obviously. But I think with regard to, our adversaries, they're probably just sitting back and laughing and just watching and seeing how this all plays out. At the same time, they think it might be us.
Now, you brought up the question before the break. I want to get back to it, which is why and why now? Because it's not just Marco Rubio and the Senate Intelligence Committee and the Department of Defense and TTSA and Lou Elizondo. That's all one direction. But we have astronomers, the search for alien life. We have exoplanets. We have fast radio bursts. We have radio signals from friggin' Europa. Right? We've got all of this going on at the same time, as well as the sightings that are happening around the world. We have We have Hollywood. We have television programming. We have film production. All of this is occurring at the exact same time. It appears to be a concerted effort to speak about aliens and an agenda, and that can't be coincidence, can it?
Well, I mean, I think anytime you can say things are a coincidence, but I don't necessarily subscribe to that. I think, what you're seeing is a gradual erosion of the stigma, which is lending to all of these things coming forward. Now, admittedly, like, the discoveries on Mars, that's a whole other thing. But to your point, Jimmy, in the general framework, right, of the general public acknowledging that there might be life on Mars, possible Martian mushrooms, that the story that just came out recently. All of that lends to that question, is there life out there? And again, most astronomers will concede that there has to be life out there mathematically, but things are suddenly coming to the forefront. And like you said, it's happening all at once. And it's exciting times that we live in. And I don't say that lightly. It's going to be interesting to see how these things pan out over time. The one thing I like to mention, though, just taking a step back for a moment, we still have, and you touched on this earlier, UFO sightings still being reported worldwide, devoid of the DoD. I'm not talking about any of the famous cases that we're talking about that 60 Minutes touched on. People are still having UFO sightings just like they have decades in the past. So I always try to tell people, don't hold your breath, don't lose sleep over waiting for this DoD report to come to Congress, because at the end of the day, we've been dealing with this subject for decades. It will continue regardless of any official statements on the part of the United States government or any other government. And I'm going to continue to do what I'm doing, collecting reports, analyzing the data, looking for patterns in the data. It's not going to curtail what I've already been doing and what other good UFO researchers are doing worldwide.
Why it doesn't appear that the DoD and the DIA is interested in the civilian perspective on this, right? Yeah. Nobody's approached you, as far as I know, right, from the Pentagon and the UAP task force report, right? Why aren't they concerned about what we have been, yelling about for decades?
I would love to be a paid consultant, Jimmy. I wish I could tell you I got a government paycheck, but I don't. I still have to maintain my day job in addition to doing my UFO research. No, it is interesting, although I don't think it's a stretch of the imagination to think that, are they looking online and seeing what other researchers are putting out there? Are they collecting that data in the background as opposed to directly approaching researchers like myself and others? Because there is a lot of good data that other researchers have put out, like SIUE, the Scientific Coalition on Ufology. They put out some really good papers. So it's readily available. It's within the public domain. And so I think they would be ridiculous not to tap into those data sources and that information that exists out there.
Do you expect, or hope, I should say, do you expect Marco Rubio, when this report does make it to the Senate Intelligence Committee, do you see open hearings? Are they going to bring in David Fravor, right? Are they, to not only hear from the pilots, but actual testimony where they are allowed to ask questions and talk about this?
I think it's all going to be predicated on what comes out in that report. If there's something of substance, I think, yes. Again, as I mentioned earlier, there's forward momentum with regard to this. That report, I think, will be a defining moment. If there's something of substance there, then I think that would be the next logical step, to your point. If it's a bunch of fluff and just general statements, then I think, the Senate Intelligence Committee is going to be kind of scratching their head trying to figure out, well, what do we do next? But I think it's going to be interesting to see what that report yields.
Now, why do you think, and I'm sure, David, that you've thought about this probably too much, the leaked videos that have happened were too easily shot down, right? They were too easily debunked. Why, if you're going to leak videos, why don't you leak something that you could, it's got some teeth to it?
Well, I think part of it gets back to what I mentioned about our adversaries, that if they truly are looking at this as an objective reality, that they, let's just for the sake of argument say, don't believe is Earth-based technology. Anything that they release to the general public, you are now releasing to Russia, China, North Korea. You mentioned it earlier. You find it hard to believe that they're not sitting on better data that's out there. But again, we have to realize that as the American public, anything that's released to us, you are now releasing to your adversaries. And if they do have extremely dramatic information as it relates to UFOs, UAPs, by sharing it with the general public, you're now sharing that with your adversaries. And do you want to do that? I mean, I think we always have to keep in mind the organizations that we're dealing with, tasked with national security. And whether you like it or not, history shows governments are based on secrets. And so this is no different.
Yeah, I have a hard... Look, Vladimir, right? Vladimir Putin's a smart dude. Smart guy. And if our Navy, if our Department of Defense is excited about the flying toasters video, right? And that comes out. He's looking, he's laughing, he's looking, they're freaking out over this, right? That is not a pyramid. That is not anything. Is this the level of intelligence? I'm talking about the apparatus, the level of intelligence that is going to be in this report that's being leaked out to the mass media. They're laughing at us because that is not anything extraterrestrial. And they know this.
And what data are they sitting on that we're not aware of? That's a good question as well, and one we'll probably never have the answer to.
Now, the other part to this, can I get you to hang on for overtime? We're out of time.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
All right. So here's another part. There's a lot of chatter out there that the Tic Tac may be, and I'm part of a pretty tight circle of scientists and physicists that have been analyzing this, that are suggesting that this is reverse engineered alien technology, that's what the Tic Tac represents. It's not extraterrestrial in a direct sense, but it is ET's technology that we have back engineered, and that's what we are seeing here.
It's certainly, I mean, let's be honest, any possibility is, a probable answer to this question. But to say that, you have to have evidence, right? You have to be able to base that on something, not just arbitrarily throw that out there. You have to have evidence to support A, a UFO did crash, A, we did back engineer it, B, we perfected the technology, et cetera, et cetera. So, I mean, it's a great idea. It's interesting to postulate, but for those that are making, the argument, the burden of proof is on you to then prove that.
Are we getting too far? And we can expand on this after the break. Are we getting too far ahead of our skis to suggest that this possible UAP drone activity, whatever it may be, is extraterrestrial? Is that getting too far ahead of our skis? And is something easier to digest? Is that, something crash landed. We checked out the propulsion system. We were able to backwards engineer that. I'm talking about Russia, right? Or China. Not necessarily us, that these, the Tic Tac was us over our own Navy, but maybe somebody made a big leap into the future and they are testing it on us.
Again, I think the best thing we can label these things are unknown. What you offered is one potential possibility. And that's what we have to look at, are possibilities. However, before we hang our hats on any one explanation, we have to have evidence to back it up.
Now, before we head to the break, what makes you more nervous? That this is ET, right? This is interstellar, or that it's us? What scares you more?
That's a good question, Jimmy. I haven't been asked that question before. Extraterrestrial might scare me less in the sense that I know what humans are capable of.
Isn't that weird? I'm right with you on that. I would rather have it be ET, right, than Vladimir sporting the real stuff.
Well, I would just, and to bolster that, it's just my answer. I would just like to say, if they're technologically advanced, I hope they're morally advanced as well.
Well, apparently, let's take our break. That's a great point. We're gonna come back and finish that thought. Our guest tonight, David Marler. We're going into overtime, folks. All right, there's no show tomorrow night. I will be on a plane heading back to Indianapolis. So let's go ahead and do this the right way. Let's go into overtime. I'm with you. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. More David after this short break. Stay with us.
You are listening to my boy, Jimmy Church, on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Despite popular opinion, reading a book will not make you smarter.
But listening to Jimmy Church will.
This is Jimmy Church, and I'll be at the UFO MegaCon this June 6th through the 12th, 2021 in Laughlin, Nevada. The Laughlin UFO MegaCon is unique. It's 7 days of education and disclosure. It's unlike all other UFO conferences. The Laughlin UFO Mega Conference specializes in bringing you new people, offering new information and disclosure. All of this is offered at prices so low you can actually afford to be there. For instance, 7-night hotel packages, 1 or 2 people, start at just $320 inclusive. Education and disclosure is why the Laughlin UFO Mega Conference exists. Join us for all 7 days, or a half a week, or just a day or two, but join us. Go to LaughlinUFOMegaConference.com. Register now. The only thing keeping you from being with all of us is you. Just go to LaughlinUFOMegaConference.com. This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and I take Life Change Tea supplements every single day. It's what I do. Click on their banner at jimmychurchradio.com. When you take the beans from Central America with dashes of Indonesian and African mixed in and then roast it to the dark side of Fade to Black, you create the ultimate brew of fringe. Introducing the Fade to Black blend from River Moon Coffee. Yes, River Moon's darkest customized roast was created for the love of Fade to Black. The alchemy of masterful roasting and smoking the beans is in every sip of this full-bodied, dark Java. I need my coffee dark, deep, with distinct bittersweet chocolate highlights, just like the bunker. Leaning further into the darkness of the roast is Fade to Black blend from River Moon Coffee. Just click on the banner at jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code F2BBLEND for 15% off of your order today.
This is Billy Carson with ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. Forbidden Knowledge TV has just reached its 1-year anniversary. That's right, 1 year. And as a show of appreciation, we are giving all new subscribers a free 30-day trial of ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. That's 30 days to binge watch thousands of movies, documentaries, conferences, workshops, lectures, yoga classes, meditation courses, and so much more. So log on to ForbiddenKnowledge.tv from your computer or mobile device, or get the Forbidden Knowledge TV app on Apple TV, Roku, Amazon, iTunes, or Google Play today, and use coupon code 30daysfree. That's coupon code 30 days free on ForbiddenKnowledge.tv today.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Brittany, Gabby, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
It's not a lifestyle we chose. We were born this way. KGRARadio.com.
This is KJCR at JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, David Marler, overtime. I love my job. I get overtime with David Marler. I want to remind everybody, don't send me any email. Don't post on social media. There is no show tomorrow night. Okay? I'm going to be flying. I'm going back to Indianapolis. Go see my family. Our guest tonight, David Marler. Now, David, okay. Overtime is where I get to have a little bit of fun, and I try to loosen up a little bit.
And so let's attempt that. But I actually have a pretty serious question, and it's about black triangles and you. There's a lot of rumors over the last about a year now about this. Now I would say infamous. I don't know if we can call it famous yet. Maybe infamous is a better word. About a black triangle image that has been circulated around the intelligence agencies. A lot of concern about this black triangle coming out of the water with 3 lights on it, and you can see all of this detail. I was actually emailed the image, if it is the same image, and I got it last week. I didn't comment on it because I was a little bit let down. I didn't see any water, and it was it wasn't what I expected. So I don't know if it's the same image. It's
Sure.
cool. Have you seen the image?
I have not. So as you're telling me this story, I'm salivating at the thought of eventually seeing the actual image. And to your point, you can't verify if what you received is in fact the purported image that's been discussed. I did make some inquiries with some people I do know kind of on the inside within DOD, and they did indicate to me several months ago, actually about 4 or 5 months ago now, that they feel that photo will eventually be released, similar to the DOD videos, that they were eventually. And I'm hoping, and again, I will probably be proven wrong, but I'm hoping, rather naively probably, Jimmy, that maybe that will be part of the report that goes to the Senate subcommittee on intelligence.
What I was sent, it may be a cropped version of the image. What I was sent was just nearly a plain black background, some stuff on the edges. And if the lights are on the bottom, then this would be the bottom of the triangle. Now, say, look at me, David. You're looking at, okay.
Yeah.
Say the image is this big. Well, the triangle would have been about
my goodness,
yay big in the middle, 3 white dots, but I couldn't see any details on the underside.
Yeah.
From what I was told by the 2 people that have seen alleged said image, that they could see details and that it was crystal clear and things.
Okay.
So what I was sent, interesting, but I don't know. Now, going back to your knowledge of black triangles, the TR3B, the descriptions that have been bandied about over a couple of decades now. This goes back, if we even, in a modern sense, if we go back to Belgium and the descriptions, that's pretty modern to me because it's the mid-'80s, right? Okay.
Oh, yeah, November '89.
Yeah, November of '89.
Start of the Belgian wave.
Right. Do you normally, when you hear this type of description, do you go terrestrial first? Are you thinking that this is a black ops special access program, United States Air Force, Northrop Grumman, Skunk Works?
Yeah, I always concede that with the quote-unquote modern reports, we can't rule that out as a possibility. And certainly that would be a much more practical explanation as opposed to saying it's someone else's technology. But, I have reports like this from like 1965 where they're describing silent triangles flying over military areas, and other ones going back to like 1957 that I've recently uncovered going through microfilm, which was just donated to the collection here. And they're describing silent large triangles with 3 bright lights, 1 in each point, sometimes moving with the base forward. So I always say when you look at the historical record, I think that you can't say they're all military if you subscribe to the fact that some of the modern ones are, when you look at this long history of these things. And so it begs the question, as you touched on earlier, Jimmy, are these terrestrial? Are they extraterrestrial? Are they back engineered technology? Since one seems to, reflect the other, I don't know. But I think we're dealing with a mixed bag. It's very easy for a researcher, for anyone in the general public, to just relegate all of these to one category. And I think you and I will agree, life is shades of gray. It's not so simple where it just goes in this category or that category. We might be dealing with a mixed bag. And what I look for is not so much the shape of the object, the lighting characteristics. I look for the exotic flight characteristics. Like, for example, as I alluded to, many of these reports, I've just found one from actually 1966 in Ohio, going through the CUFOS Nightcap files with some beautiful sketches, I might add, showing a triangle with lights around the periphery, but all three witnesses drew separate sketches and they described the triangle with the base moving as the leading edge.
Right.
Now, we're looking at F-117A, B-2 stealth bomber, any known aircraft with aerodynamic principles. You would think the apex of the triangle would be the leading edge just because it makes aerodynamic sense.
Right.
But many of these are not. They're flying with the flat side, which is about as aerodynamic as a brick.
I was out in the Mojave Desert. I've told the story way too many times, but I was out in the Mojave Desert and right next to the boneyard where the aircraft are parked and dismantled. Right. Okay. So I'm right there, coming up the 14 freeway, and I see this object skimming across the deck, right? And I see the dust flying up, and I'm like, wow, what is that? And I'm with a friend, Dan, and we slow down, and it flew right and it's a B-2. Now, flew right over. I mean, just, it couldn't have been, now, it was probably higher, but it felt like it was like 10 feet, right? It was just like, silent. And I was just amazed. Never seen it in public. There were rumors about it. Now I see it fly over my car.
Yeah.
That was as alien as anything you could imagine. Right?
I've had the B-2 fly over me.
Straight up alien. Dude, that's alien, right?
When I lived in St. Louis, the B-2 flew over downtown St. Louis for one of the baseball games, and I knew where it was going to be coming from, and so I kind of had myself poised and ready, and I sat there, and sure enough, the B-2 flew straight over, but I did hear engine noise. It wasn't silent, but it's quite a spectacle to see that.
Yeah. If you didn't know any better, right? If that thing was up higher and you had no idea, that's ET. That's a black triangle.
Well, it's funny you bring that up, Jimmy, because I have in the files news clippings and reports from the mid to late 80s around the Antelope Valley area of California.
Which is where this was, yes.
Oh, there you go. And people were describing at the time, quote unquote, UFO that was seen that looked like a bat wing shaped object. And it wasn't until 1989 that the B-2 was unveiled. And then people realized, okay, that's what we saw. So it was a UFO until they realized that the B-2 existed.
Yeah, it was crazy.
And they described the batwing-shaped object. However, many of the witnesses noted it had an unusual shape, but it had a characteristic jet engine sound to it. And
yeah, I didn't hear this coming. And after it flew past us, it was... there was a jet engine sound, but it was completely muted. I heard the wind going over the wings more than I heard the engines.
Sure.
It was crazy. It was crazy. But okay, hold on. I got it. We only have so much time. So we have these reports, right? Terrestrial F-117. That's a flying triangle if there ever was one.
Absolutely.
But then we have the reports of these Imperial Star Cruisers, right? These ginormous black triangles that are a mile long, half mile long, blocking out the sun and blocking out stars. That's a whole nother consideration.
It's a whole other consideration. I'm glad you used the Imperial reference because during the Unidentified episode I did with Chris Mellon, Dr. David Clark from the UK was on there, and he was naysaying all of the triangle reports, saying, well, we need to realize that these didn't start appearing until 1977, 78, and after, and I think we need to look at it. And basically people, what his contention was is that people saw Star Wars, and then now people are looking up and seeing Star Destroyers. I had numerous people, dozens of people contacting me, and even still today, after seeing that unidentified episode. And one woman very vehemently stated, I want to let you know, my husband and I saw this in 1973, and FYI, contrary to that so-called expert in the UK, that was 4 years before we saw Star Wars.
Did you meet David Clark?
No, never have met or interacted with him.
Okay, good for you. Okay, I just want to know what he was like. I just wanted to know. I got an email from him, it was probably 6 months ago. So church, let's do something. I was like, nah.
Well, I'm
going to pass.
It doesn't matter what you believe. As I said earlier, it only matters what the data reflects. And I have dozens and dozens and dozens of triangular UFO reports worldwide predating Star Wars. So if he would ever like to sit down and have a discussion, I would love to educate him on that.
Well, I'm going to share something. I'm going to make this the quick version. One of my neighbor's sons, who I've known for about 10 years, so he comes over. His name's Mikey. Mikey, if you're listening, okay, I'm going to throw you under the bus. So Mikey comes over, and he goes, so Jimmy, and everybody knows what I do for a job, right? But I don't talk to my neighbors about UFOs. Don't do it. But Mikey comes over, and he goes, hey, man, so I'm out in Palmdale, Antelope Valley, right?
Absolutely.
And he said, 3 o'clock in the morning, man, I'm like 13, 14 years old. And it was 3 o'clock in the morning, and I walked out the back door, and the stars, it just got really dark outside. And I look up, and he goes, dude, I'm not kidding, man. It was like a 2-mile-long triangle, black craft right over the house. And he goes, and I could see it, and it's moving this way, and it was just, and I freak out, and I go and I bang on the neighbors' doors. I'm trying to get everybody out, and he goes, and I'm wondering, we've got the Air Force Base right here. Why aren't they shooting at this? Where are the police?
Right.
Why aren't they trying to shoot this thing out of the sky? And he goes, and I go over and I'm standing underneath this, and it's flat. And he said, then it went whoosh, like an elevator and disappeared into the stars. And I'm like, come on. And he goes, man, I wouldn't walk outside in the dark for years. I only went outside during the daytime. It freaked me out. And now this is just a kid, right? And I believe everything that he said.
Well, it's interesting you bring that up because it brings up a couple points. One, the case I investigated back in 2000 for MUFON was the famous Southern Illinois, St. Clair County triangular UFO
One of the best.
Multiple officers.
One of the
best.
best.
It was well documented.
Yes.
Well documented. But we have the recordings of the police officers talking to one another as they're seeing it successively from police precinct to police precinct, very similar to the first night of the Belgian wave in November 29th, 1989. What's interesting about that, though, is, they're describing this object, and it flew within 1 to 2 miles of Scott Air Force Base, yet we have no witnesses that saw it taking off or landing at Scott Air Force Base.
Now, didn't it make a U-turn around Scott? Right,
well,
it turned. It flew multiple counties and turned.
Yes, it flew within 1 to 2 miles of Scott Air Force Base, then moved to the southwest.
Right.
Then it kind of made as far as we can estimate, Jimmy, because then we got subsequent reports that came in that may be contradicted. But the initial reports suggested that it flew near Millstadt, Illinois, then over towards Dupo, and then the police officer thought he saw it, but it was much higher altitude and it was moving to the northeast. And so we think it basically disappeared from the original direction it came. But no reports of it taking off or landing at Scott. And people, again, correlation is not necessarily causation. Just because we see these things near military bases doesn't mean that's where they originate from. We have a strong pattern of these UFOs, triangular and otherwise, being seen near military installations, nuclear testing facilities, nuclear weapons storage, nuclear power plants. So we can't say with certainty that they're originating from these areas, but they do seem to show interest specific to these areas.
Why do you, with all of your research, if there's one thing that fascinates me, is we've seen this generational, I'm talking about us humans, this generational change and shift in types of sightings.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Flying saucers, cigars, cigar shape.
Absolutely.
Black triangles, squares, rectangles. We've seen, and the last, probably the last 10 years, maybe a little longer, lit craft, right? Lit orbs, which I have seen. And then I had my now famous beer can sighting. And that thing was 500 feet tall. That was huge, and there was 30 of us that saw that.
Yeah,
I still can't explain that. But we've had these very strange segments of time where things are different.
Absolutely. That's not to negate the fact that we still have disc-shaped objects being reported occasionally. We still have cigar-shaped objects.
Yep.
But to your point, the prevalence, the frequency of certain types of UFOs seem to be specific to certain decades or periods in time. Now, sociologists that are listening to this conversation, they're immediately going to jump to the fact that, well, it's just the evolution in the mythology, the belief system with regard to UFO believers. Individuals like myself are going to say, well, okay, I could accept that, but many of the cases from the 50s and 60s were military cases, which also involved radar confirmation. So it's not just eyewitness testimony, much like some of the DoD modern occurrences we're talking about. We have objective measures that are recording and monitoring these things in conjunction with eyewitness testimony.
I've never seen the cigar. I want to see the cigar. I've seen multiple disc. Of course, the beer can. I've seen a triangle or two.
Sure.
Those I've seen. I haven't seen a cigar. The plasma crafts, these things, multiple lights and different colors and doing crazy things. I've seen hundreds of those. Hundreds that just can't be explained away.
Well, it's funny, in lectures I've done across the country, inevitably I'll get asked, what shapes and sizes do these UFOs appear? And I said, basically everything your imagination can generate. I said, they come in all shapes and sizes. There was even one that looked like a ribbed condom that was a famous sighting near Mount Kilimanjaro in Africa. And so, I mean, it just, every shape and size, rectangles, squares, orbs.
Ribbed condom. I could see the MUFON. Yeah, the new MUFON guy. Okay, what? Sketch artist.
I'm just saying.
Oh man.
Just you can almost develop it. You can go through literally the thousands of case files that are sitting here, and you'll find all shapes and manner of UFOs being reported. But to your point, there seem to be very specific patterns with regard to certain subsets of UFOs that are being reported, and those are the patterns that I like to look at, and I think a lot of other researchers are looking at, because if there's patterns in the data, it's suggestive that we're dealing with a real phenomenon, that it's just not wide and varied as far as the reports. And especially, Jimmy, when you look at like the triangles, for example, that have been cited and described over decades with a geographical distribution worldwide. In fact, there was a 24-hour period that I've been able to cross-correlate looking at different data sets where Project Blue Book documented a triangular UFO sighting in Illinois, a triangular sighting near the Illinois-Wisconsin border, and within that same 24-hour period, in an air intelligence report from Project Blue Book files, 2 fishermen described a triangular UFO with lights at each point seen over Sumatra, Indonesia.
What have you seen?
I have seen unusual lights in the sky moving in nonlinear fashion, extremely high altitude. It's nothing I would ever constitute as a UFO. I've always said if I see a UFO, I need to see rivets. I need to see structured detail. My mind could come up with a logical explanation. It would be stretching it, but I could come up with a logical explanation to probably, come up with a conventional explanation. So, and I have to tell you, in my early years, I spent dozens, if not hundreds of hours out in areas where there were UFO sightings, cattle mutilations. I was set up with cameras, infrared photography, night vision gear, parabolic recording microphone to record noises and sounds. And in every event, every night that we did that, never saw a thing.
What do you make of cigars and triangles and spheres and saucers? But what about the interdimensional aspect of all of this, where it just may not be traveling at the speed of light for 10,000 years?
I have a fundamental issue with the extraterrestrial hypothesis, and likewise, I have issues with the astronomers and the mainstream scientists that always default to those tired explanations. Well, the distances and the lifespan of the being and the energy requirements. Again, it's kind of a false starter, right? A non sequitur to throw those arguments out, because to your point, what if we're dealing with beings that are intelligences that are coexisting on a different level? In other words, a dimension that coexists with ours. The only difference is they're able to slip in and slip out between the dimensions where we are not. All of those conventional explanations fall by the wayside if that's the case. And the funny thing about that is, in the 1960s, some of these ideas were being put forth, and a lot of mainstream scientists and physicists and even astronomers would point to that and laugh at the folly of UFO researchers, that they're stuck in science fiction.
Right.
Well, Dr. Michio Kaku and other leading astrophysicists, theoretical physicists, are now seriously discussing M theory, string theory, multiverses. This is not the stuff of science fiction. This is the stuff of science fact. It's almost like science is catching up with the UFO phenomenon.
It has come to the point where I look at science more. I said this to Eric von Daniken in our interview a couple of days ago when he asked me about this exact question. I said, look, Eric, when a skeptic approaches me, the bullets in my gun are science. I go to science, man.
Exactly.
Parallel worlds, the multiverse, entanglement. These are the things that science is talking about today. They're talking about that math. They're talking about, that's what they want us to absorb and comprehend. That's what I go to a skeptic with.
And imagine going back in time 100 years talking to scientists about these things. They would probably want to chastise you and cast you out from society.
Burn me at the stake.
He'd burn you at the stake if you go back even further. I think John Mack was the one that coined the phrase, which I absolutely love, that science has become the new religion. Rigid, dogmatic, unyielding. And, history has shown time and time again, when we think we know what is, something comes out of left field that completely debases all of it. And we have to rethink our view of reality.
Yeah, no matter what it is, and I don't know what it is. I don't know how they're getting here, but they are. But whatever it is, it's easy. It's easy for them, right? We get in our car, we start it up, and we drive somewhere. That 200, 300, 400, 500 years ago, impossible to even suggest to somebody what is going on. Today, It's easy for us to go shopping. It's easy for us to fly to London. These are easy things, and it's the same thing for ET. Whatever it is, it's easy, right? And we're going to get there.
I just think we need to continue to look at the data, suspend belief or disbelief for UFO believers or UFO skeptics. Simply look at the data, try to approach it with a rational perspective, be objective, but look at the data. Don't believe arbitrarily, but don't discount the subject arbitrarily.
Thank you so much, David. What a great night on the show. Thank you for doing the overtime with us.
Sure.
In the short time that we have left, about 15 seconds, what's up next? What are you working on?
Well, basically high-level digitization project. Right now, in addition to the NICAP CUFOS files I received in November, I have to give a shout-out. Rod Dyke, who lives in Washington State, Rod Dyke in the Archives for UFO Research, Rod purchased all of the vintage historic audio recordings from NICAP, from Richard Hall before he passed away in the 90s. And he had those recordings. CUFOS had the NICAP case files. Recently, Rod heard me on a podcast and was so impressed that I was able to have the files here in the context of the rest of the collection. He generously, and I say that truly, he generously donated all of these dozens of archival reels going back to the late 50s, archival audio recordings with Don Kehoe, Richard Hall, but more specifically, Jimmy, UFO witnesses. And I've been able to start taking the recordings and matching them up with the case files. After decades of separation, all of that data is now reunited and complementary to each other. And I'm working on, in fact, tomorrow morning, I'll be doing it first thing in the morning, working on digitizing these hundreds of hours of old vintage reel-to-reel recordings, and more specifically, digitally enhancing them, improving the quality from the original content. And I plan on getting those uploaded to where those will be available freely to the general public and to the UFO research community, in conjunction with what Jan and Barry are going to be doing, scanning the case files. So eventually, all this material will be available online for those that happen to be in the Albuquerque area or in the region and that would like to make a trip. I open up the archives to any serious researchers until we do get those digitally preserved and put online.
Man, you got the best gig in the world. Give my best to Barry and Jam when they come by.
I will.
That's going to be really cool. And
tentatively, we're looking at August.
Full on gel. Thank you so much, David. Enjoy the rest of your night, and it's time to go back to work. Thank you so much.
Absolutely, Jimmy. Take care.
David Marler, thank you so much. We just went bumper to bumper, pole to pole. I've got to jump straight into credits, and then I'm going to go jump on an airplane and head back to Indianapolis. Thank you so much, David. Absolute best. Fade to Black's executive producer is Rita Camarion. Shows produced by Hilton J. Palm, Renee, Dennis, and Kevin. Announcers are Steve Harder, Gene Vito, and Mark D. Kovar. Webmasters Drew the Geek. Music Doug Aldrich. Intro Spaceboy, spaceboymusic.com. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network, and syndication is KGRA The Planet. This broadcast is owned and copyrighted 2021 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network, Inc. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. I'm off to Indianapolis. Everybody have a great, safe, fun, amazing weekend. I'll see you on Monday. It's time to fade to black.